My entitled father demands that I uproot my entire career and go get my realtor license so that he can use me to buy more rental properties at a cheaper rate. But after being under this guy's thumb my entire life, I finally had the chance to put my foot down and completely shut him down, telling him off in a way that I've always wanted to. And I've got to be honest, it felt very satisfying and I'm very glad that I did it. Here's what happened. To start things out, my father is a very typical Chinese businessman. He snuck to Canada when I was very young and stayed until he got citizenship and moved me and my mom over. Then he promptly went back to China to start a business as soon as my sister was born. For years, the only time he ever talked to us is when he needs English translation of documents and to carry out his business dealings overseas. To compensate us for his lack of presence, he sends us money and gifts us gaudy brand name clothing that doesn't fit, even though he doesn't even know our sizes. Then, once I'm an adult, he tricked me into a panic job search by saying his business is failing and he can't send us mortgage payments. I stayed in a soul-sucking, underpaid job for 2 years, working through mental breakdowns, literally believing that I'm the only financial source. He finally slipped up one time when he needed me to pay for a business deal in Canada, and I just blinked and said, I don't have any money. Throughout my adulthood, he would require me to do various errands in ridiculous hours because of the time zone differences, such as drawing on my own savings to manage his finances. I would retract multiple times the monies he gave me as a gift, not to mention he burdened my mom and I with managing rental houses that he partially paid for, which by the way was all in the name of family assets. But he is a capitalist through and through, wringing every drop of free labor out of his own family with the pretense of a benevolent father. One of his favorite justifications is to say, oh, this will all be yours when I'm gone. I started to realize he is mistreating this financial control when my sister got a raise in her job. As my mom and I were celebrating with my sister, she said, well, now I can take care of you and mom. I could not convey the full emotion in words, but it slowly dawned on me that we don't need my father's financial support anymore. We are independent and we can act on our own interests instead of his. My sister also encourages me to prioritize my mental health, and I slowly grew a backbone with regards to dealing with dad. The tipping point came some months ago when he once again nagged me about going into real estate, wanting me to get a license so he can buy more houses cheaper. He said to me, it's easy to get a license, you just need to study for a couple of months. But you know what? I finally snapped and answered in a way that a well-mannered Chinese daughter would not do. I said to him, I am not interested in real estate. I'm not suited to be a salesman, and I will never apply for a license. I am not working a third job just so you can have more houses. He looked at me shocked and said, but all the money they've earned I'll leave to you. You'll inherit all of my money. I then said to him, exactly. That means the money is not mine right now. That's all your money. I'm helping you manage your money because I'm your daughter. I am not going to work myself into an early grave for you. Now, my dad truly just can't wrap his head around this because he said to me, you are not making sense. You are earning money that will be all yours. I won't be here forever and you'll have it all. At this point, I'm trying so hard not to scream, but I said to him, look, I don't need your money. I'm only doing what I can because you are my father and I'm helping family, but I won't devote all of my free time to making you money. He then defaults to guilt tripping me, which is something he always does, and says to me, is this how you're going to repay me for all my sacrifices? But right as he was getting started, I cut him off. I say to him, it's your duty to raise me and you've done that. Now it's my duty to take care of you and mom. And part of that is to tell you I can't make money as you wanted. My sister and I are already making enough to take care of you and mom. We literally don't need that anymore. If you want to earn more money, do it without involving us. I will only help you when I have time. He then went on to try and complain more by saying, oh, kids these days are so lazy. But I said to him, I am a fully grown adult. I'm not a kid. I have a full-time job that sometimes requires overtime. I take care of mom, I take care of our home, and all of the rental units. I will not spend my very limited free time applying for a realtor license. Now, is there anything else you actually want to talk to me about? Well, at this point, he was speechless, so I just said to him, okay, whatever, take care and don't play golf until your shoulder hurts. Bye. And honestly, it felt so good after all these years to finally take control of my free time. The shadow of my father's request superseding any activity had always loomed large in my life, and now I can enjoy sunshine once more without fear of needing to do something for him. Okay, this is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, boundaries are a big deal. Holy crap, your dad was like, hey, get a realtor's license so I can buy more property for cheap. When it's like, dude, you're asking me to change my entire life and career just so you can make more money? Like, are you kidding me right now? What's going on? That is so incredibly selfish, it's not even funny. And in my opinion, it's completely devoid of any kind of like understanding of what your kids are going through. I'm sure they're not saying, oh, you didn't raise us properly or you didn't raise us at all, but I definitely think they're like, man, now that I'm an adult, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to be under this guy's thumb any longer, and I'm going to make my own money. So yeah, this entire situation is very crazy to me. I think your dad was completely out of line by trying to request that out of you, but I also think it was fantastic that you stood up for yourself and put your foot down, because this kind of entitlement absolutely deserved to get shut down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled customer tried to return something to our store that they very clearly bought somewhere else, as this customer literally lost her mind when I asked her for a receipt because she not only didn't have one, but also said she was going to leave bad reviews all because we couldn't help her out. And it's honestly so exhausting dealing with customers like this. Here's what happened. So I work at a small boutique that sells home decor and gifts. Yesterday, this woman came in with a decorative vase still in its box, wanting to return it. The box also looked beat up and had this weird smell, like it had just been sitting in a garage for months. I asked for her receipt and said that she didn't have one, but insisted that she bought it here a few weeks ago. Now, here's the thing. I've worked here for over a year, and I've never seen that vase in our inventory, ever. The box had a completely different price sticker format than what we use, and the barcode didn't match our system at all. I politely explained that I couldn't process the return without a receipt, and that I wasn't sure if we even carried the item in the first place. Well, when I said that, she got so defensive. Then she started going off about how she definitely bought it here, and that I must be new or not paying attention. She then pulled out her phone and started showing me photos of our store from Google reviews like that proved anything. Then she mentioned that she'd seen similar items on wholesale sites when she was planning her move from Los Angeles, and knew for a fact that we source from Alibaba suppliers, just like everybody else, so it shouldn't matter where the exact box came from. But it's like, ma'am, that's not how returns work at all. My manager eventually came over and explained the same policy, and this woman left in a huff saying that she was going to leave bad reviews. And honestly, some people really think that retail workers are just idiots who will believe anything, because this entire situation was completely avoidable. Okay, I hate customers who act like this, especially ones who are like, oh no, I bought it here, only to then reveal their hand and be like, oh no, I actually bought it online and I want to return it. But it's like, if you want a refund, then go to the place you actually bought it. Like, why give these people a hard time for literally no reason? You're just wasting your time and everybody else's. Like, I know for a fact if I was in this scenario, I would be very annoyed and I would hate having to deal with it. My neighbor keeps using my driveway as a turnaround spot, despite the fact that we live at the end of a cul-de-sac, and there's no reason to ever use my driveway in the first place. But after I told her to stop doing that, she freaked out on me in a way that really has rubbed me the wrong way. And now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. I live on a cul-de-sac and my driveway is at the end, positioned in a way that makes it convenient for turning around. For the past few months, my neighbors from 3 houses down has been using my driveway multiple times a day just so she can turn her car around instead of using the actual cul-de-sac circle like a normal person. Now, at first I ignored it, thinking maybe it was a one-time thing, but it's become a daily occurrence. She pulls into my driveway, reverses out, and then drives off, sometimes multiple times in one day. It's not technically blocking me in, but it is my property, and it's annoying watching someone treat my driveway like a public turnaround. Well, last week I was outside washing my car when she pulled in to do her usual turnaround. I politely walked over and I asked her if she could please just use the cul-de-sac instead of my driveway, since this is private property. And my God, her response was unbelievable. She told me that I was being ridiculous, and that apparently it doesn't hurt anything for her to turn around there. She said the cul-de-sac is too tight for her car and my driveway is more convenient. When I said I'd prefer that she didn't use my property, she actually rolled her eyes and said, it's just a driveway. It's not like I'm parking there. Well, I tried to stay calm and just repeated that I would appreciate it if she would stop. She then drove off without agreeing to anything and has continued using my driveway every single day since. Yesterday, she pulled in while I was getting groceries out of my car and didn't even acknowledge me. I then mentioned it to another neighbor who actually said this woman complained to multiple people on our street about me being unwelcoming and territorial over public space. She apparently told people that I yelled at her, which absolutely did not happen. I'm considering putting up a small sign, or maybe one of those collapsible barrier things, but I don't want to escalate this into a full neighborhood war. My husband thinks I should just let it go since it's not actually causing damage. Meanwhile, my sister suggested that I order these cheap boards online just so I can block the entrance, but that also feels a little petty. I did look at nicer barrier options during a sale sale with like $10 off of like every $100 spent at the hardware store, but I couldn't justify the cost for something this stupid. So seriously, am I in the wrong for wanting her to stop using my driveway? How do I handle this without turning it into a neighborhood problem? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would be parking my car at the end of the driveway. Like seriously, if she wants to be weird and be like, oh, I can use your driveway, it's public property. First of all, no, it's not. But secondly, oh, okay, we could be weird. Let's be weird together. I'm now going to block my entire driveway with my vehicle so that you can never do that again. Because seriously, what she's doing is stupid. There's no reason she should be going into your driveway that often, especially when there's literally a cul-de-sac she could be using. Even if she has to back up once or twice when going around the cul-de-sac, she doesn't have a right to your driveway. Like, that's weird. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This lady is a psychopath, and I don't blame you for being upset. Am I the jerk for wanting to end a 15-year relationship after finding out that my girlfriend hid a major health issue from me for over a decade? Because right now I feel betrayed and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my girlfriend and I have been together for 15 years and we've been living together for 12. We started dating in our mid-20s and we've built a life together. We have a shared home, we share our finances, we even have a dog that we both adore, and I really thought that we knew everything about each other. Last month we were at a barbecue at her friend's house and I was chatting with her mom about how neither me nor my girlfriend really want kids. But then her mom made an offhand comment about how it's really for the best considering her condition. I asked what she meant and she got all flustered and then just changed the subject. Later on, I asked my girlfriend about it and she just kind of brushed it off saying it was nothing. But you know what? I pushed the conversation, saying that we shouldn't have secrets, and eventually she got defensive. She then admitted that she has a genetic disorder that drastically increases her risk of certain cancers. She's known about this ever since she was 18 but never told me. And when I found out about this, I was floored. This was a huge thing to hide. When I asked why she never said anything, she said she didn't want it to define her or our relationship, that she had always managed it quietly with regular screening, so she didn't see the need to worry me. But all I could think of was, well, what if something had happened to her? I wouldn't have ever known what was going on. And the fact that she actively hid it, even when we had discussions about having kids, like I feel like I don't even know her. I then told her that I needed space to process this betrayal. After a lot of soul searching, I realized that I don't think I can trust her ever again. If she could hide something this big for 15 years, what else might she be keeping from me? And it's here that I told her I want to end our relationship. Well, she's devastated. She says it was a mistake not to tell me, but that it doesn't change our love or our life together. Her family thinks I'm overreacting to an admittedly difficult situation. But seriously, am I the jerk for feeling like this was an unforgivable breach of trust? That someone who could lie to me daily for over a decade isn't someone I can build a future with? I'm heartbroken, but I feel like I don't have a choice, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, the original poster here is completely out of line. Yeah, you are completely stupid for leaving your girlfriend over this. Like, are you kidding me right now? This is not her lying about cheating on you. This is her saying, yeah, I've got like a genetic disorder. Sorry, I didn't really mention it because it's not really a big deal. This is not some big betrayal where it's like, oh, I can't believe you kept something from me. Why would you do that? I'm gonna break up with you and throw away 15 years of our lives. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, you are absolutely the jerk here. This is so dumb. You're giving up on your relationship all because your girlfriend might get cancer? Like, what are you talking about? If you really loved her, this would not even be an issue. So the fact that it is an issue for me screams everything I need to know about you, like holy crap. So yeah, you are definitely the jerk here. This is a massive mistake, and I really think your girlfriend's family is completely right. You're overreacting, and this is really not that big of a deal. My sibling literally volunteered my time just to look generous, all without asking me first. But after I declined to help out with the crap they were trying to sign me up for, they tried to claim that I embarrassed them in front of the entire family. And now, after being called selfish as well as a myriad of other names, I'm starting to wonder if I'm the jerk for not just following through and sucking it up. Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so last month, my sibling invited a few relatives over to my place. I didn't mind. I mean, I cooked, I cleaned, I bought the food, and I figured it would just be a low-key family night. During dinner, one of my cousins mentioned that they were moving soon and were stressed about doing it alone. Before I could even react, my sibling jumped in and said, "Oh, don't worry, they'll help you move this weekend." I then laughed and thought it was a joke, and I said, "Wait, what?" My sibling didn't even look at me. They just said, "You're free on Saturdays. You don't really do much anyways." And I said to them, "You didn't even ask me." They just rolled their eyes and replied, "Why are you making this awkward? It's family." And I just said to them, "I'm not making it awkward. I just want you to ask me first." Later that night, my cousin pulled me aside and thanked me for for being so generous, then mentioned my sibling has already told them I insisted on helping to make up for a favor I apparently owed. Now, what was that favor, you might be asking? Well, it was lending my sibling money the month before, which they still haven't even paid back. The next day, I told everyone I wasn't helping, and my sibling blew up at me, saying that I made them look bad and embarrassed them in front of the family. And now I'm being called selfish for refusing to give up my weekend and cover for a promise I never made. So am I the jerk here? Because this is honestly really unorganized and very frustrating. Okay, in my opinion, I would lose my mind if someone did this crap to me. Seriously, there's no excuse for this. First and foremost, no one's gonna make any plans for me whatsoever. I don't care if they're family or like a spouse, like no one's gonna make plans for me without talking to me first. And no one's gonna volunteer me for something without asking first either. That is almost just as obnoxious, if not worse so, because like, dude, that is frustrating beyond end. I can't stand people who are like, oh, you're not doing anything anyways on Saturdays. Don't make it awkward. I mean, come on, this is family. And it's like, yeah, this is family, and family asks people and respects boundaries. Or at least you would hope so. I mean, holy crap, sometimes they just definitely don't. But in this case, I would expect them to. Like, you absolutely need to know this is not okay. You can't just volunteer me for something and expect me to be okay with it. Because at that point, I absolutely will embarrass you in front of the family. I'll tell them straight up, I was not cleared of this beforehand, and no, I'm not available. And it ends there. Like, you literally don't have to give any explanation. So no, you are not the jerk. Your sibling's an idiot for trying to volunteer you like this. And if they're embarrassed, then that's on them and definitely not you. My manager on the last day of me working there made me wait until 3 o'clock in the afternoon just to have an exit interview. But since my desk was packed up, I decided to get some petty revenge for making me wait, as I hid well over 700 of my business cards all throughout the office and warehouse, ensuring that I'm leaving a lasting legacy, because trust me, they'll be finding those business cards pretty much everywhere for years to come. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old male and I worked at a small company as a salesman for the better part of 4 years. As my sales went up, my income went down due to restructuring and all this other garbage. Meanwhile, my boss and I would butt heads pretty frequently, but somehow not enough to get fired. Well, on my last day, they took my accounts away in the morning, but wanted me to stay until 3 for an exit interview. Now, I had already cleaned out my desk and legitimately had nothing to do but wait. There ended up being a box and a half of business cards left over, with about 700 cards in there that, you know what, I decided I was gonna hide everywhere. And no, I didn't leave stacks here or there. I hid every single one individually. My boss's shades were up, so I tucked close to 50 in between the shutters, meaning that when the shades closed, it would rain down cards. I also put them under people's see-through rubber mats for their chairs. I tucked them into unused rolls of paper towels so they fell out one by one when in the dispenser, and we also had a small warehouse with hundreds of boxes, and every single open box ended up with my business card in them. They are literally hidden throughout the first aid kit, behind pieces of art on the wall, lining the conference room windows. I mean, you name it and I put it there. They literally will be finding my cards for years to come, and honestly, I think that's probably the best way to be remembered. Oh man, this is really funny. First of all, if your sales are going up but your income's going down, then holy crap, it's a good thing you're getting out of that place. You're making the money, but obviously it's not enough and they're clearly bad at their jobs. So that in and of itself really sucks. But the fact that they made you stay the entire day, like literally stay until 3 o'clock in the afternoon for an exit interview, you know, on your last day of work, like for me, that's really dumb because they could have done that right then and there and sent you on your way. Like at that point, they're just doing that to be inconvenient instead of there being like a legitimate reason why you need to stick around. So to me, I really like this petty revenge. I love the fact that you hid it everywhere because like you said, they're going to be finding this for years to come. And in my opinion, I think that's a good way of getting revenge. An entitled boomer causes problems the second he shows up to the first class row I was sitting in, as he snaps at the flight attendant in a way that made me worry that this was going to be the entire flight, him complaining and me dealing with it, putting me in a scenario that honestly I wish I never had to deal with. Here's what happened. So recently, I took the opportunity to upgrade to first class right before a flight, and I've got to say, I had maybe like 3 minutes to enjoy it before my boomer seatmate arrived. The first thing he said was the F word because we were in the first row, so there was no seat to slide our small bags under. When the flight attendant informed him that there was no space in the overhead bin for his, he snapped at her for no apparent reason, saying that he paid a lot of money for this seat as he stood up and huffily put his bag in. Then he ordered his first glass of wine, pulled out his phone, and started watching a football game with the volume up loud enough for everyone around to hear. No headphones or earbuds or anything, and kept watching it until after we took off. I could clearly hear people behind us talking and laughing about it, but he seemed completely oblivious to it. Now, I will will give credit where credit is due though. He was fine for the rest of the flight. The couple directly behind us had an infant who stayed remarkably quiet through the whole flight until we started descending. Then he did not stop screaming until we made it to the gate. I was cringing the whole time waiting for this guy to explode. I mean, he was probably on his like 5th glass of wine at this point, but surprisingly he kept quiet until we were about to deplane and then actually said something nice about how well they did with the baby. So maybe he should have just started drinking before he got on the plane. Oh, and by the way, next time I'm staying in economy where I belong because I took a risk and honestly it was not really worth it. Okay, this is one of those situations where it's like, oh man, I finally get to fly first class. I can never afford it, it's always way too expensive, but today is my day. But then you end up with a boomer like this and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be a nightmare. They're gonna be annoying, they're gonna be causing problems, I am not looking forward to this. But thankfully, it looks like all they needed to do was just get drunk and then everything would work out. So I think the original poster got really lucky because this could have been way different. My mother-in-law secretly obtains our address and shows up unannounced, demanding that we give her time with our kids, or else she would call the police and get our kids taken away. And despite the fact that we went no contact with this woman several years ago, and that we live in a different country and never gave her our address, we are now incredibly shaken that this woman not only found us, but is also making these outlandish demands. Here's what happened. Let me start off by saying that I'm a very happy 29-year-old female living with my husband Alex, who's 31, as well as our 4 kids ages 7 all the way down to 1 year old. My husband and I had pretty bad childhoods, but I have great contact with my parents, and when we still live fairly near them, they would come and help out by cleaning the entire apartment, and overall they were amazing. Meanwhile, his family is absolutely insane. His father's in jail and his mom is absolutely crazy. There's been so much insane drama with her that a few years ago when we moved back to the United Kingdom from a different country, we went completely no contact with her. Alex also has a sister and a brother, and while we don't talk with a brother, we are really close to his sister. She lives in London and is also no contact with my mother-in-law. She recently graduated from university and she loves our kids, so we think that's great. The last time we heard from my mother-in-law was 2 years ago, which was right when we moved, but since then, everything has been really calm. Well, fast forward to 3 weeks ago, and I was recently looking through old photos, and I realized that Alex and I hadn't gone on a proper date in ages. Once every 2 months, we used to take a weekend trip to the beach or the mountains or the city, all before we had kids, and even after our first date, we stuck to the tradition and we took the baby with us. But after our second, we just didn't have the time anymore. We were busy, plus we live by the beach, so if we want a nice outing, we just take a 1-minute stroll there and then we call it a day. But looking back at those photos really just brought back this nostalgia of a time spent just with the two of us. And after talking with Alex, we decided it would be nice to take maybe a weekend trip down to France the following week. Now, I don't work and Alex has a flexible schedule, and while we did have to move a few things around, overall it wasn't that hard. His sister immediately agreed to come and look after our children, and the kids are excited to see their aunt. I was a bit sad to leave the babies, but knew that it would be good for our relationship to have some time just for ourselves. So we were all ready for our trip. It was Wednesday and we were all set to go by Friday evening. Alex was at work and I was home alone with the children when I heard the doorbell go off. I go and open the door, and there, standing with a smug grin on her face, is my mother-in-law. And I was shocked to say the least, because how on earth did she find out our address? She doesn't even live in the same country as us, and yet here she was standing at my doorstep. She then pointed at my son, who I was holding, and said, "Oh, is that the newest baby? I've never even met him." She then practically pushed herself in and casually sat down in the living room, while I tried to figure out what on earth I was gonna do. When I asked her why she was here, she tried to avoid the topic, and instead wanted to see the other kids and bond with them until Alex came home, but I would not let her. It might sound rude of me, but as I said, she's done some incredibly toxic things in the past before and after I gave birth, so this was to protect our family. Finally, she dropped the sweet grandma mask and revealed the true reason that she was here, to persuade me into letting her spend the weekend with her grandkids. She somehow found out that we were going to France and leaving the kids with my sister-in-law, and she just wasn't having that. She began saying that my sister-in-law was irresponsible and young. She wouldn't manage taking care of 4 young children for 2 whole nights. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law explained explained she was experienced after raising 3 children, so she would have no problem. Plus, according to her, she was already here, so she could do it. Now, when I said no, she shifted her personality and became serious, which meant yelling at me and telling me she had the right to see her grandbabies, and that she would call the police and demand grandparental rights. She claimed I was being awful and neglectful for planning to leave my children alone for a whole weekend, and that she'll call CPS and really try to get us in trouble. Now, I was getting tired and I asked her to leave, but she said she won't and literally sat down on the couch refusing to move. When I called Alex to come home, he was not pleased and got into a heated argument with his mother, which resulted in her finally leaving. However, this whole thing is nuts because we cannot figure out how she found out our address or even our weekend plans. And my sister-in-law swears that she didn't tell any relatives and only told her colleagues and roommates about what was going on. Now, as for my mother-in-law, she didn't fully leave. I have no idea where she's staying at the moment, but we see her driving a rental car outside of our house constantly, as if she's some kind of surveillance officer. It's so ridiculous but scary at the same time, because our 2 older kids are constantly playing outside in the garden without supervision, and while we obviously have a fence and security cameras, it's still a scary thought that she might try to snatch one of them up, even though Alex assures me that she wouldn't go that far. We ultimately canceled our trip due to fear that she would try to pull something while we were gone, and we're still trying to figure out how she found us, and we're just waiting for her to do something that would let us get a restraining order against her. She is a scary woman for sure, and it seriously left us in a really awful spot. This is really scary because seriously, this lady is not right in the head. First of all, she basically broke into your house and she said, "Oh, I'm not leaving until I can see the kids and spend time with them," while also saying that if she didn't get her way, she was going to call the police and make up all these lies. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that's the only reason she's outside of your house constantly in that rental car. She's probably trying to document some kind of situation just so she can try and have it in her back pocket as some kind of like ultimatum, even though that would never work and what she's trying to do is insane. Like, she's clearly not right in the head, and it's obvious that she has ill intentions towards you and your family, because for her to show up to your house unannounced as well as having your address in the first place, like, that is really intrusive and really scary. And I really think if I was in your shoes, I would go to the police. I would tell them exactly what's going on, and if they really do have cameras, then I would be like, look, this is her basically forcing her way into my house, because this entire scenario is really sketchy, and if I was in your shoes, I would take this very seriously. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for allegedly ruining my friend's vacation after they sent me a text message saying that I ruined everything based on the way I was acting? Because right now I'm completely floored and blown away, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 38-year-old female and I just got back from vacation with my 2 lifelong friends. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Kate and Mary. I've known them since university and we've always been close. The 3 of us have been planning this Bali trip for a few months, along with our husbands and their kids. They both have children under 5, while my husband and I are child-free. For the sake of the story, we'll call my husband Jake. We agreed to split the cost of a 4-bedroom villa 3 ways, and everything seemed fine at first. Jake and I arrived in Bali earlier than the rest of the group because we had different flights. Once we got to the villa, we waited to choose rooms with our friends and didn't mind when they both chose the ones with in-suites. We had a great time during the trip. Jake and I did some couples activities like hiking or getting a massage or having dinner, but we also spent time with Kate and Mary and their families whenever it worked for everybody else. To be nice, I even surprised them with massages to give them a break. The only thing that made me uncomfortable was that whenever I ordered a drink, which was a cocktail before dinner or a glass of wine with meals, I'd get comments like, "Oh, you're drinking again?" Now, for context, I'm a social drinker and I don't drink that often, but we were on vacation and I didn't think it was a big deal, especially since our husbands were drinking too. Well, I just ignored the comments so I could enjoy the trip. On the last night, Jake and I made plans with the guys to go out, and Kate and Mary said they were staying in to pack. Jake convinced me to join them, and since it was the last night of our vacation, I didn't want to stay in either. We went out and we honestly had a great time. We got back home at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I passed out straight afterwards. The next morning was a bit chaotic with everyone packing and checking out, but we all made it back home without issue. We had booked business class seats back, so we were separated during the flight and said quick goodbyes at the airport. Well, a week after returning home, I got a long text message from Kate saying that both she and Mary wanted to reduce contact with me because apparently I had ruined their vacation. They mentioned several things like me drinking every night and that I wasn't acting like a a girl's girl, and that I booked different flights and I didn't hang out with them enough, and that I was selfish for not helping them with their kids. She even said that I was just focusing on partying and not acting my age, and this message really hurt me. Well, I cried after reading it, and honestly, I don't know what to think yet. I thought I was just enjoying my vacation, but clearly they had a very different view. I haven't responded yet, and my husband has been asking me what's bothering me, but I don't know what to say. So am I the jerk for how I acted on the trip? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they wanted to share. Here's what they had to say. Okay, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their kind words and their support. Reading through the responses and seeing how many of you are upset on my behalf has made me reflect on how I initially planned to handle things. I was going to apologize, thinking it might be the easiest way to keep the peace, but now I realize that might not be the right approach after all. I've also showed my husband Jake this post and the text message, and he told me to thank you for looking out for me, and he's actually pretty angry on my behalf about the text message too. I also showed him some of the comments that gave me insight on how my friends may have been feeling, which has given both of us a lot to think about. He also asked me what I wanted to do next, and if I wanted him to respond to my friends for me. While I appreciated the offer, I told him I'm still thinking it over. He reassured me that he's here for me no matter what, and if I decided I want him to step in, then he would be ready to say something on my behalf. For now, I'm going to sleep on it and take some time before I respond, or even if I just don't respond to the text message. But again, I want to thank everybody for helping me see things a bit more clearly, because right now, I feel less alone in all of this craziness. Okay, first of all, no, you are absolutely not the jerk, and I definitely echo pretty much all the comments that are in this post, where people basically say, yeah, you did nothing wrong. For starters, you were on vacation. Of course you're gonna have fun and spend time with your husband. For them to be like, oh, you were drinking every night and you didn't spend any time with us. Like, seriously, are you also married to them? Like, what is this all about? Are you kidding me right now? They're trying to make this sound like you were just drunk out of your mind and you were stumbling all over yourself and you were not acting your age, but it's like, are you kidding me? I'm in Bali on vacation with people I thought were my friends. If anything, that is definitely the place to let your hair down and just have some fun. Not to mention harmless fun on top of that. I find it also really funny that they're like, you didn't even help with any of our kids. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Did you really expect the original poster and their husband to watch your kids while you guys went out and did whatever you want? Their choice to be child-free doesn't mean that they should be saddled with your kids. If you didn't want your kids with you on this trip, then guess what? You should have left them with a babysitter or a family member or somebody else. Like, how is this the original poster's problem at all? Just because Kate and Mary didn't get the most out of their trip like they were wanting to, doesn't mean that the original poster's at fault. It just means that Kate and Mary are jealous of Jake in the original poster. Like, come on, that's all that's going on here. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. And honestly, if Kate and Mary want to pull away from you for not being more involved in their stupid trip, then honestly, by all means. Because if I was in your shoes, that is not the kind of people I want to be friends with. Especially if they're going to try and blame me for their vacation. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for locking my husband out of the house, all because he wouldn't stop bringing stray animals into our home? Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband has a huge soft spot for animals. Like, it's a nice trait and all, but it's getting out of control. Every time he sees a stray dog or cat, or even a raccoon, he brings it home, as he would say, just for the night to make sure it's okay. We've been married for 5 years, and in that time, I've come home to at least 20 different animals in our house. Some were covered in fleas, some chewed up our furniture, and one time, he even brought home a possum that hissed at me when I went into the kitchen. It is beyond stressful, especially since we already have 3 pets of our own. I've told him countless times to stop bringing strays home, but he just brushes it off, saying, well, I can't just leave them on the street. Well, last night was the final straw. He comes home at midnight with a stray goat that he found wandering near a park. Yes, a goat. And he thought it would be fine to just let it stay in our living room overnight. Well, I lost it. I told him he's being ridiculous and that he can't keep doing this, but he still wouldn't listen. So I did something drastic. While he was out in the backyard trying to build some makeshift pen for the goat, I locked the doors and I told him he could sleep outside if he was so attached. Well, he ended up sleeping in the car because it was cold, and now he is furious with me, saying I overreacted and that it's cruel to lock your own husband out. Well, I told him I'm done living in an animal shelter and that it's either the strays or me. Well, he says I'm heartless and that I should be more compassionate, but I feel like I've put up with enough. So am I the jerk for locking him out because he wouldn't stop bringing home random animals? What should I do? Okay, for starters, I do think you're the jerk for locking your husband out, because this is like a massive overreaction. Seriously, it's cold out and you made him sleep in the car. I get that you don't like these animals in your house, but this is like over the line in my opinion. Like this absolutely can be the last straw and you can be like, okay, this is not gonna happen any longer. We gotta figure something out. But to lock him out of the house like that, I really do think that's over the line and that should not have happened. But also on that same note, this is not excusing your husband's behavior. Like this guy's bringing home random animals that you're like, okay, I don't want this in the house. Because trust me, I'm right there with you. If I saw a possum in my kitchen or even like a stray dog or cat with fleas or even a raccoon, like I would be losing my cool as well. So hopefully there's some kind of solution here where your husband can still rescue these animals, but keep them out of your house in the process, because that is clearly a combination that is not working for the both of you. Am I the jerk for telling my little sister that she is insane for taking the door off of her daughter's bedroom as some kind of punishment, all because she didn't want to go to Girl Scouts? Here's what happened. So I recently told my sister that she was turning into our mentally unstable mother and was ruining her relationship with her daughter, who we will call Sarah, which is something our mother did with us. For context, Sarah is a really good girl. She's homeschooled, very sheltered, and heavily involved in Girl Scouts. My sister controls literally every aspect of her life. Sarah has been apparently acting out lately, such as saying no to chores and refusing to cooperate, which is something that I think is pretty normal for this age. And for reference, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them have gone through puberty. It's obvious to me that Sarah is acting out as a way to establish some independence and doesn't have the tools to be able to express this need to my sister. Defiance is obviously something that needs to be addressed, but I think my sister would have a much better outcome with a compassionate conversation with Sarah. I know it's not my place, but I believe with my whole heart that it's time for her to let Sarah know that she is proud of her and trusts her to do the best in making good choices and is going to be giving her more freedoms to positively reinforce her good choices, not the opposite. Also, 2 days after this whole ordeal, Sarah started her first period, so I know this all is likely a hormonal surge and should have been met with compassion and not anger and punishment. Anyways, Sarah didn't want to go to Girl Scouts. She had to compete against other girls for a badge and was too embarrassed at the thought of losing, so she flat out refused to go. Well, when Sarah said this, my sister was so upset with her. She didn't ask her why she didn't want to go, but instead she just became really heated and things somehow escalated to the point where my sister took away all of Sarah's privileges, namely her electronics, her phone, even any books, and told her that she was only allowed to leave her bedroom to go to the bathroom. The next day, when my sister was bringing Sarah her lunch, she caught her reading and my sister just lost her mind. She threw Sarah's lunch on her bed and said to her, "The next step is calling the police, and trust me, your treatment here is far better than the treatment you'll receive in jail." And Sarah responded in tears by saying, "Okay, call them." So my sister walked away pretending to call the police, and when she came back, she removed Sarah's door from her bedroom and said that the police told her to do that first and that the next step was going to be jail. And I honestly feel the way she's treating Sarah is awful. My sister and I have always been very close and promised to let each other know if we were turning into our mom. Well, I did that, and now she's not talking to me. So am I the jerk here? Should I just tell her to parent the way that she sees fit, even if she's going to destroy her relationship with her kids and with me? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk for saying something, because seriously, the way your sister's acting is insane. She's treating her daughter as if she did some horrible crime, but literally she's just growing up and doesn't want to go to Girl Scouts. So for her to be like, "Oh, you're gonna go to jail," and then take the door off its hinges and be like, "Oh, the cops wanted me to do that." Like seriously, this is an overreaction to like the highest degree. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for telling her the truth, because seriously, the way she's acting is not okay, and she is only ruining her relationship with her family in the process. Am I the jerk for refusing to throw away a bunch of my clothing simply because my partner thinks that I have too many? Because right now I'm very frustrated, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I moved into a new house recently. He is paying for the home as well as the vast majority of our expenses. For reference, he is well off, and my net worth is about 3% of his for context. In our home, we have a walk-in closet. Currently, I use about 60% of the closet, and he uses 20%, and the 20% that's unused is available for him to use. In addition to the closet space in our bedroom, we currently have 2 guest bedrooms with large closets as well. Prior to purchasing our new home, we lived separately, and when moving here, I was very deliberate about which of my clothes I was bringing along, and I used it as an opportunity to get rid of a ton of items of clothing that I literally no longer want. Well, my partner has said to me, "Hey, I want us to go through your clothes and decide which ones we're keeping and which ones you don't wear or use, and we should honestly just get rid of it." And I responded by saying, "Okay, we can, but I already did that, and I only brought over the clothes I know I want to keep, so I don't think this is necessary and it won't lead to me getting rid of them. He responded that he still wanted to go through them, stating that it's fine if we don't end up getting rid of anything, but also that he doesn't want to bring junk into our new home, while also saying that I have way too many clothes. He also offered that we could go through his things and do the same thing, but I said that I don't have any problem with how many clothes he has, and I'm not concerned about what he keeps or doesn't keep. To me, this whole thing is unnecessary, and I don't even see why it needs to be an issue. We have the space, I already did what he is asking me to do on my own, and also I'm having a hard time seeing why this even matters or is an issue. And this isn't the first time this has come up. He's brought it up multiple times, leading to a similar conversation, with last night's being especially vitriolic. I got upset about it while we were discussing it last night, and I said to him, why can't I bring what I want into our new home? And he just said to me, fine, I don't care, bring anything. And why don't you pay for everything too? And then he left because he needed a break. So seriously, am I the one being unreasonable here? What should I do? No, you're not being unreasonable at all. You already did what the original poster wants to do, so there's literally no point in doing it again. It also sounds like you guys have plenty of closet space like around the house. So if this really is like a space question, then honestly it seems like he's making a mountain out of molehills. This is also such a weird thing to be controlling over. Like, why is he so upset about this specific thing? It doesn't make sense and it's just kind of weird in my opinion. I don't know, it's like a borderline red flag if you ask me. Like, is he controlling in other areas of your life? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but this just seems a little sketchy in my opinion. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. There's nothing wrong with the clothing that you have, and I really think this is just something that your partner is just gonna have to get over. My toxic in-laws have been constantly talking garbage about me behind my back in another language, saying terrible things about me under the guise that I couldn't understand them. But after listening to this for several months, as well as putting up with so many awful comments, I decided to drop the news that yes, I understood what they were saying, and that I've known the entire time. And now, as a result, my entire extended family has freaked out on me, claiming that I'm the one at fault for secretly knowing that they were insulting me all along. Here's what happened. My husband and I have been married for about 3 years, and for the sake of the story, we'll call my husband Peter. We have one child together, and I was pregnant with our second, and I'm Western Canadian while he is from Germany. We lived in Canada for a long time, but because of inflation, moving back to Germany seemed to be a better option for us. So we bought a nice house in the place where my husband is from. The day after our flights to Germany, we all visited Peter's family, and this was the second time I've seen them, with the first time being our wedding. They greeted us and brought us inside of the house, fussing over my son. We had dinner, and soon we left the house, wanting to settle into our new home. Now, we visited Peter's family often for the next few months, but I had started to realize that they would sometimes speak about me in German. They would make rude comments on my hair and makeup, question my fashion choices, and overall were just very unkind to me. They also said mean things about my pregnant belly, which I was already insecure about. I ended up talking to my husband about this, and I told him that I didn't like the way that they were treating me. I said that I hated how my every choice was judged. So he told me that he would talk to his family. Well, the next time we went to his parents' house, there were no more mean comments. And for about 3 months, it was like nothing ever happened. I gave birth to a perfect baby girl that we named Lilith, and Peter's family was very upset when they heard the name. Now, if you didn't know, Lilith means ghost or of the night. We didn't pick this name because of its meaning, but because it's a name that every girl in my family has had for many years. My middle name is Lilith, along with my mom's, my grandma's, and even my great-grandma's. For a while, I didn't visit my in-laws. I didn't want to hear them talk about how I shouldn't have named my daughter Lilith. But yesterday, we saw them again. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, and as soon as we showed up, things started to go badly. Everybody wanted to hold Lilith, which made my mother-in-law upset because people weren't paying attention to her and made me overwhelmed. But I didn't want people to hold her. I was going through a pretty bad postpartum depression, and it was pretty early to see people. So I let people look at her but declined when anybody asked to hold her. During the dinner, I heard my sister-in-law talking to my mother-in-law in German, and I actually heard her complaining about how she couldn't hold my baby. My sister-in-law even had the audacity to call me, and I quote, a fat, ugly addict. Well, I turned to my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, and I told them off in German. I basically said that I have always known what they have said about me, but calling me names was honestly the last straw. I also mentioned how I have known German for almost my entire life. Well, when I said that, the table instantly blew up. People were yelling at me because apparently this was my fault. I eventually left with Peter, and we haven't talked to them ever since. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. These people absolutely had it coming, and you called them out in the perfect moment. You're literally in front of the entire family, and you're watching as all of them are complicit while these comments are being made. They're not only not defending you, but they're also letting it happen. And that, in my opinion, is almost worse than anything else. So the fact that you dropped it on them like that, and based on the way they reacted, shows that they're not only guilty, but also how absolutely obnoxious they are. They really tried to turn this on you and be like, oh, this is your fault for not telling us. And you almost want to question and be like, why? Because now you can't talk garbage about me behind my back? Like, there's no way this is your fault. This also makes me wonder how many times your husband has let this slide. Like, sure, he kept it a secret that you know German, but did he ever chime in and be like, wait, don't talk about my wife like that? Like, I really hope he did defend you in some kind of way, because if not, that means he's complicit as well, and that would be so damaging in my opinion. It's also hilarious to me that these people didn't assume that the lady who's married to a German man who moved to and bought a house in Germany doesn't somehow know German. Like, seriously, talk about a miscalculation to the highest degree. Did they really just not think it through that maybe you know what they're talking about? Like, in my opinion, I think you have the patience of a saint, because if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would put up with that for even a second. Like, the second I knew they were talking garbage about me, and I realized that they actually don't like me in the way that I hoped they would, I would have set that record straight real quick, especially if I'm going to be living in the same city as these people. So no, with all things considered, you are absolutely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. You've tried to be cordial with these people, and it really sounds like you did everything right to try and make these people like you in the best way possible. But at the end of the day, people like this never change, meaning that their behavior is absolutely not your problem. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not moving my wedding date just to accommodate my sister's pregnancy? Because right now she's really mad, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have a sister who we will call Ellie. Ellie and I have always been close growing up, despite her being 3 years older. We've always been best friends, and I was her maid of honor, and she's gonna be mine. Ellie is currently 5 months pregnant, and she had a rough first trimester, throwing up 3 to 4 times a day, and always was very tired. Some days she literally couldn't get out of bed. She had also found out early when she was a month into it, because her symptoms were so bad. Her and I live close to each other, and since her husband travels a lot for work, I have stayed with her a lot since I work remotely. Now, my fiance and I had originally set the date for July. However, seeing how sick that she was, I, along with my entire family, were getting very worried. And so, after my fiance and I discussed it, we decided to reschedule the wedding until after she had passed her first trimester, and per her doctor, she was supposed to get better. Now, I need to add that nobody asked us to do this, but I felt that it was needed. And thank God she did get better. She's eating normally and going out and back to herself. Seeing this, my fiance and I talked about our wedding again, and had always wanted a summer wedding on the beach, but I didn't want to wait a full year, and seeing winter wedding pictures was slowly growing on me. And so with that, we decided on a December wedding. The invitations were finalized last week with the date, and it was all sent out a couple of days ago. And yes, it is early, but my man and I all have big families and big group of friends and colleagues, so we need to get the RSVPs very early. Well, yesterday I got an angry phone call from my sister asking how I can do something like this to her. I was honestly confused, and I told her as much, and she went on to rant about how inconsiderate I was to not wait until my nephew was born, that her being the maid of honor and 8 months pregnant is going to be hard, and that she has already been through so much already. I calmly explained to her that while yes, she is the maid of honor, I don't expect her to go above and beyond. My best friend and her had always planned a girls' night back when my wedding was in July, so we're just going with that again. I mean, everything is already bought, and my best friend will set it up. I told her that my man and I have also rebooked everything ourselves, and that I will pay to have her dress resized to accommodate her bump. I'm even taking care of hair and makeup for all my wedding party, so we will have a sort of pamper session where we'll all get ready together and take pictures. So basically, all she's required to do is show up. Well, she's having none of it, and is demanding that we reschedule it again until next summer. But I put my foot down and I gave her a flat out no. My parents called me and asked me to reconsider, saying that I know she's emotional and hormonal, but I told them that's not an excuse to act this way. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update they would like to share. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their comments and their advice. I'm definitely seeing her side more than I was before, but I do want to clarify some things that I didn't add in the post. When we rescheduled the wedding, her and my brother-in-law had my fiance and I over for dinner, as we do weekly dinners every Friday, and she had thanked me for rescheduling and told me that she felt guilty, but I made sure to tell her that I don't blame her, and that having her there healthy healthy and happy is what matters, in whatever capacity she can give me. I made sure that she knew that she could step down from maid of honor at any point, even if it was the day before the wedding, and that I would understand no matter what. That dinner, my man and I also floated the idea of a winter wedding around, and both her and my brother-in-law said it would be fun since we haven't had that in our family yet. We also chose the date around many of our family schedules along with our friends' availabilities, who were also still being gracious enough to do our wedding flowers and catering and renting us the venue despite us rescheduling it once already. Also, I may have to update in the future because my parents called and invited me to their house so my sister and I can talk it out. I have no idea why she's using a third party, even if it is our parents, but this all is super frustrating and I'm just wondering where this is gonna lead. First and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk for moving the date of your wedding. You already did it once to try and accommodate her, and now she's turning around and acting like, oh my god, why would you do this to me? You're gonna be ruining everything if you do that. That is absolutely ridiculous because this is not about her. And it's also just insulting for her to be like, no, get married next year. Because wait a second, why do you have any say in when the original poster gets married? That's really annoying and there's just no reason to act like that. So no, I don't think the original poster is the jerk at all, and I think the way the sister's acting is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for clapping back at my cousin after he spread a false rumor that I was pregnant? Because right now I am very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my third cousin by marriage is a 9-year-old and honestly is probably a sociopath. He purposefully breaks and steals people's property, even his grandma's family heirlooms, and constantly publicly disrupts things. In fact, he started shouting animal noises during the quiet part of his uncle's funeral. He is just a massive piece of garbage child all around, and his two dads are pretty much hands-off and barely even supervise him, much less discipline him, and then also get really verbally aggressive when someone else speaks up to them about their son's unacceptable behavior. One of his new hobbies is telling me that I look pregnant and that I'm fat. I'm a size 10, so I'm not tiny, but not really fat. I do have a condition called diastasis recti that I can't have surgery to fix until I'm done having kids, but it gives my belly a more pronounced appearance. I've explained this nicely to the kid and his parents multiple times, that I have this medical condition that I'm self-conscious about, and I'm very sensitive. So please stop loudly saying I'm pregnant and calling me fat. Well, he kept doing it, and he also only does it in front of large groups of people, like when we're all gathered around a fire pit or eating dinner. So I know that he knows that I'm not pregnant and that it's inappropriate to be doing this. So we were at a family dinner this weekend, and this kid goes up to the bartender my mother-in-law hired for this private event and tells him not to serve me because I'm pregnant and an alcoholic. I then went up to the bartender myself later with a group of my husband's family to get a glass of wine, and he actually refused to serve me, citing this kid for telling him that I'm pregnant. And when I heard that, I just died inside. I was beyond mortified. I then marched up to one of the kid's dads and I told him what the kid did and said that he needed to ask him to apologize to me because that was unacceptable. Well, he refused and actually got offended that I would ask for an apology. So I'm pissed. I walk up to the kid and I say to him, I know what you did to the bartender. Why did you do that? To which he replied by saying, it was funny. Well, I clapped back. I said to him, you know what? I understand why your original mother and father didn't want you and put you up for adoption. You're a bad kid. Well, when I said that, the kid starts bawling, and it's the first time I've ever seen him cry. And after I said that, I just walked away. He told the whole family, and I just said that I asked him why he did what he did, and I'm sure people believe me because this kid also lies a lot. But I do kind of feel bad, and I wonder if I was out of line, or if there's something else I should have done instead. I just got sick of trying to take the high road and address it with the parents and having them not give a single care about it. And you know what? I also rationalize it by saying, well, maybe now he'll learn not to mess around and find out, and maybe next time he'll think twice about trying to hurt somebody. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna be honest real quick. I don't think the original poster is the jerk. Now, this might be a hot take. I totally understand if someone's like, wow, how could you feel that way? But this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, I think it's time to fight fire with fire. In my opinion, if your parents are not going to supervise your kid, and this kid's gonna run around and do stuff like this, at that point, the gloves are off. That little brat actually went up to a bartender and said, don't serve her, she's an alcoholic and pregnant. And sure, the bartender's a moron for believing that crap, but also this kid was completely over the line. He's done this repeatedly, and the original poster has talked to the parents repeatedly. She's practically begged them to please leave her alone about this, and that she's really sensitive and self-conscious about it. Like literally, she's done everything she can to be civil and try to take the high road, as she put it. But this little demon spawn clearly has no discipline in his life, and he thought, thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it because I think it's funny. And if the parents aren't gonna get involved and no one's gonna listen, then in my opinion, what the original poster said is not at all that bad. Because here's the thing, the parents and the kid allowed it to get to this level. You literally just want to exist at family events and not be called pregnant or fat by some stupid brat. And that's all this kid is. He's spoiled, he has no discipline, and the parents are clearly doing nothing to help out. And worst of all, they're the kind of parents who get upset when you say something about their stupid kid. And oh my god, I can't stand parents like that. They are the worst to deal with because they just don't see what's actually happening. Or they do see what's happening and they still don't do anything about it. So personally, maybe that's a hot take, but if I was in the original poster shoes and I had been harassed like this by this stupid kid over and over again at pretty much every opportunity he's given, then I would probably say something like this, if not a little bit worse. And the thing is, this kid absolutely has it coming. You can't just talk to someone like that and expect to get away with it all because you think it's funny, or even because your parents are literally doing nothing to supervise you. So truly, I think you did nothing wrong in this scenario, and I think this kid absolutely had it coming. An entitled older couple followed me from store to store, claiming that I tried to hit this old lady with my car, even though I definitely didn't. Here's what happened. So I've been visiting my family in my hometown, and yesterday I borrowed my mom's car to visit a close friend and her family. I stopped at the store, which is located in a small strip mall, to pick up a treat for the kids, and while I was driving through the parking lot, a woman, probably in her early 60s, was walking over to her car. So I slowed down, and I came to a complete stop about 3 to 4 feet from her so that I could let her cross. And when I did that, she stood in front of my vehicle to scream at the top of her lungs about how I almost hit her and this was a parking lot. I mouthed the word sorry to her just to de-escalate the situation, but she refused to move and continued screaming at me. So I drove around her and I went to park the car to enter the grocery store. I took maybe 5 steps from my car and I noticed that she was storming over towards me, absolutely fuming. So I immediately got back in my car and I drove away about 5 minutes down the road to a different store just so I could not engage with this lady. As I was waiting in the checkout line of the store, I saw her and a man who I assume was her husband walk in and began looking around, definitely looking for me. And at that point, I got super freaked out and I left my items behind and immediately exited the store and walked to my car. Well, she saw me and followed me out to the parking lot and proceeded to scream in my face about how I almost hit her and kept saying how she has pictures of my license plate. Her husband also just stood behind her with his arms crossed, staring me down. After about a minute of this, I got into the car and I locked the doors, and I just kept telling her to get away from me, but she continued to stand in front of my car and scream at me and film me on her phone, all the way until I called the police, which I told her I was doing so if she didn't get away from me, and it was only then that she left when she realized I wasn't bluffing about calling. Well, this really freaked me out, because I have been attacked completely at random in public before, and I know rationally that she probably wasn't going to attack me, but by the time I got on the phone with the dispatcher, I was like completely shaking and could barely handle my phone to make the call. Now, I want to be clear that I was driving probably 10 to 15 miles an hour at most in this parking lot, and there were many other people walking because it was a Saturday morning, and we were right in front of a diner which is also in this strip mall. It would not have been possible to be driving fast because of the amount of folks coming in and out of the diner. I also work with children, and I'm acutely aware that parking lots are an area where kids may try to run from their parents up to the car and all this other stuff. So I always try to make sure and be aware. Maybe I'm misremembering, and I got closer to her before coming to a complete stop than I think I did, but I'm fairly certain if I had enough room to drive around her when she refused to move, that I was not overly close to her. Even so, I don't think this interaction warrants what her and her husband did, but this whole situation really freaked me out, and I really hope I never deal with it ever again. Wow, that's really scary, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with that. You tried to do everything possible. You tried to de-escalate it and be like, okay, my bad, I'll be on my way. And you tried to leave and get away from these people, but they literally tracked you down to the very store that you ran to just to try and get your stuff and go along with your day. Like, for starters, that lady clearly had like a chip on her shoulder, and she either wanted to have an argument, or she was trying to blow this out of proportion just to try and like get you in trouble in some kind of way. But regardless of how she felt, there is literally no excuse for the way she acted. This is also one of those moments where having a dash cam or some kind of camera in your car is quite literally your best friend. Like, my God, that would have changed everything. If this lady really did want to try and like mess around, she would have absolutely found out. Also, in my opinion, I think locking the car door and calling the police while she's screaming at you would have been a better plan than telling her that you're going to call the police, because this behavior absolutely deserves to be punished. finished. This lady's following you from store to store trying to scream at you, making up this story that you tried to hit her with your car. Like, no, that's not what happened at all. That's insane. So truly, I'm so sorry this happened to you because the way this crazy lady acted was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for confronting my neighbor after they asked my girlfriend to watch their cats despite knowing that I had planned a surprise getaway for the two of us? Because right now, my girlfriend's upset with the way I handled this, and at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I planned a surprise weekend getaway for my girlfriend, and I was excited because I had booked everything in advance, and I kept it a secret for weeks. Well, a couple days before the trip, I casually mentioned to my neighbors that I had planned something special for the weekend, and that my girlfriend would be out of town. Well, the neighbor didn't say much, and just kind of nodded, and I didn't think much of it. Well, later that day, my neighbor asked my girlfriend if she was busy over the weekend, and if she could look after their cats while they went away. And my girlfriend, being the nice person that she is, agreed without any hesitation, assuming that she didn't have any plans. Well, fast forward to the weekend, and I finally reveal the surprise trip to my girlfriend, and she is absolutely thrilled. But then she remembers she agreed to look after the neighbor's cats. She then apologizes, and now we're stuck because she feels bad backing out of the commitment. Well, I was furious because I had already told the neighbors about the surprise weekend. They knew we were going away, but still asked her to do them a favor. I eventually confronted the neighbor, and I ended up shouting at them for putting my girlfriend in an awkward situation when they knew that we had plans. Well, my girlfriend now thinks that I overreacted, and the neighbor is upset with me for being rude. But I feel like I was justified because I had planned this special weekend and it got completely ruined. But now I'm starting to second guess myself. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what your neighbors did is so rude. They knew that the both of you would not be available that weekend, and yet they still go specifically to your girlfriend and say, hey, can you watch our cats for the weekend? We're gonna be away. And it almost seems like they did that on purpose to ruin your plans. And that's crazy to me. Like, why would they do that? This was supposed to be a surprise getaway. That's not something you just forget overnight and you're like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. Like, I'm sure hundreds of dollars went into that, and now these people just completely ruined it. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think the way they tried to ruin your plans is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for not being open to the idea of changing my first name simply because my foster parents don't like it? Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old male and I'm a foster kid. I was taken from my mom 3 years ago because she's not doing good mentally, and it wasn't considered safe for me to live with her. My current foster parents are the ones that I hope to stay with until I turn 18. They're the best I've ever had, and I bounced around a lot, especially in my first year. But there is something that came up that now I'm wondering about. So my name, for the sake of the story, is Ryder, and my foster parents don't outright say that they hate it, but I think I saw my foster mom cringe at my name before. My foster dad asked me when we first met what my middle name was, and I guess that wasn't a name that he liked either. So they call me Rye, and I think sometimes they tried to say my name's Ryan instead of Ryder. Well, a month ago, they had asked me if I had ever considered changing my first name when I turned 18 to something more sophisticated sounding. They even said Ryan could be an idea since it is close and they share a nickname, but I told them I liked my name and I didn't ever think of changing them. They didn't say any more then, but a week later, they told me they had thought a lot about my future and they worried my name would be something that holds me back. My foster mom said it sounds so lewd when said fast, and they felt I deserved better than that, but I told them that it didn't bother me and I liked that my mom had chosen my name, and that was the end of it again. But then last week they brought it up again, and they showed me these articles on the importance of a name, of naming babies for adult life instead of being cute or fun as kids. They told me they couldn't make me do it, which I knew, but they would like me to strongly consider it so I could have the chance at a professional future and being taken seriously. They said they would hate to see me passed over for jobs because of my name, and that they feel like a much older me wouldn't find the name as cool as I do now. They asked if I trust them, and I said yeah, and they said if I do, I should really give some thought to what I could change my name to that would be a better name for me as an adult. I told them I was really never going to be okay with that, and I felt like it was a waste of time and would just get me stuck with some name that I wouldn't like. They then asked me why I was so okay with dismissing my future and why I didn't even want to try when they were doing all they could to help me out. And right then I could tell that it really got to them that I was still so against it. So am I the jerk for not wanting to change my name? What should I do? No, of course you're not the jerk. It is insane that they're really trying to be like, oh yeah, you need to change your name. We don't like your name as it is. It's got to be something different. different. Like, that's insane and that doesn't make any sense. The name Ryder is a completely normal name. Any kind of lewd assumption is on them, not on you. So if I was in your shoes, I would not change my name for a second, because honestly, their logic is completely flawed. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not using my inheritance from my parents to try and take care of my husband's family? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for about 31 years. We purchased his parents' farm several years ago and paid for it with a mortgage. We have since paid that mortgage off, and we also built our forever home on the farm, and it is also paid for, and we raise cattle on the farm. His family is always asking for help, and this is really his sisters specifically, and a couple of his nephews. For context, we took care of his father, mother, and Down syndrome sister when nobody else in the family would take care of them. We were the only ones of his siblings who still had young children at home, but we felt that if we didn't take care of them, the state was going to step in and take them away. In my family, you take care of your family, so we took them in and never looked back. However, I think his family resented us for this, and somehow feels like they are owed something because we own the family farm. And for some reason, my husband thinks that he has to take care of his other sisters, even though there's nothing wrong with them, except that they have low IQs. Now, on to the issue at hand. I have inherited a decent amount of money from my parents, and my husband doesn't know the specifics and is upset that I won't disclose the amount. He doesn't have access to the account, and he wants me to take some of the money and build a house on our farm for his sisters to live in, so they won't have to pay for rent anymore or even live in apartments. He wants us to pay their property taxes and insurance because he says they won't be able to afford that, but they can pay their utilities. And he doesn't want to charge them rent. But seriously, why should I use my inheritance that my parents worked their butts off to earn and pass on to me so that my husband's lazy sisters can sit in a brand new house on their family's farm and never have to pay property tax or insurance or even rent? I feel like this is my money and I shouldn't have to spend it on his family. I want to put the majority of it in trust funds to our 2 children so I can pass it on to them. And to be honest, I am seriously thinking about taking my inheritance and getting a divorce and living happily ever after. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think it's insane that your husband is like, oh yeah, give me your inheritance so I can use it for my sisters. Because this literally is not his money. And I can understand him wanting to take care of his sisters, but it honestly seems like he's focusing on them instead of, I don't know, his children. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be upset as well. Am I the jerk for telling my parents to think about whether they want to stay with me after my mom gave me the silent treatment literally over nothing? Here's what happened. I'm a 31-year-old female and I live on another continent from my parents. We have a rocky relationship because my mother is controlling and throws fits when she doesn't get her way. My dad is unfortunately an enabler and goes with the angle of saying, oh, it's your fault, you should apologize for upsetting your mother. And trust me, he does this every single time. Well, recently they came to stay in my 400 square foot studio apartment with me, despite me saying they might be more comfortable in a hotel. For cultural reasons, I'm from an Asian family, and my mom thinks that she needs to come rearrange my kitchen and cook food for me, and that I should be grateful and revert to the powerlessness of my childhood. For example, she decides what I eat for every meal, and I get questioned about when I'm leaving the house and when I'm coming back home. Well, I came back from work yesterday, and the water was out without any kind of warning. I got slightly upset, as my landlord has been guilty of doing this kind of thing before, all without any kind of 24-hour notice. As I was putting in the work order, I muttered under my breath about how annoying it was, and I was clearly very frustrated. Well, my mom started telling me to calm down, and then she started to say, why do you always get so worked up about these things? Now, I was already very frustrated, so I calmly said, don't tell me to calm down. I have the right to be upset about this. My feelings are valid. And trust me when I say this, I did not raise my voice. Well, my mom hates when I say things like this, so she responded by throwing whatever she was holding to the ground and giving me the silent treatment. And before she started that, she said to me, well, I have the right to feel many things too. How dare you talk to me that way? Then she gave me the silent treatment for the rest of the night, including refusing to eat dinner. This morning, they left for a short trip, but will be coming back to stay with me later. And as we were waiting for the taxi, I asked my mom a little incredulously if she was going to continue giving me the silent silent treatment when she came back. Well, she didn't even respond. So I said to her, this is the one time I'm going to bring it up. I'm not going to keep asking about it, and there's not much point in coming to visit me if you're going to ignore me the entire time. So my mom said to me, fine, then we won't be staying with you when we get back. We'll make alternate arrangements. My dad then started laying into me about how it's my fault because I was upset and I upset her yesterday by throwing a tantrum, and now apparently I was trying to bully her into speaking to me. So I said back to him, if you really feel that way, then maybe you should think about whether you want to stay with me when you get back. So am I the jerk for saying this? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your mom and dad are completely out of their mind if they think this is appropriate behavior. For starters, your mom and dad sound incredibly controlling. Like, that sounds obnoxious and I would never want to deal with that ever. Like, that seriously must be so stressful. And the way your mom was acting when you were upset about the water being out, that is so weird and it's just so unacceptable. I mean, it's almost as if she was trying to like find a reason to be upset, and it just doesn't make any sense in the slightest. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and hopefully for your sake, you're able to get away from your parents and live a life without your parents trying to get in the way. Am I the jerk for refusing to plan my wedding around my stepsister's schedule? All because my mom has constantly made us do that all throughout our childhood. Here's what happened. My fiance and I are planning our wedding, and we set the date not too long ago. My mom reached out after learning the date, and she was all panicked and told me that my stepsister couldn't make it and I should call her up and check for different dates to find out when would work better. Well, I told her that that's not happening and that our date is the date that we've chosen. If my stepsister can't make it, then the world won't end. My mom was taken aback by my response, and she actually asked me how I could say that. She told me a sibling or any immediate family member missing a wedding is a big deal. Now, for a bit of background information, my dad died when I was 6 and when my brother was 5. When I was 8 years old, our mom told us that she had a boyfriend, and when I was 10 years old, she remarried. Her husband had my stepsister with his ex-wife, and they shared custody. Our plans once my mom remarried revolved around my stepsister. Christmas every other year was celebrated at a different time, all because she was with her mom and not with us. Family parties were missed if she wasn't around because mom was pissed at anyone in the extended family who didn't make sure that my stepsister could be there. She would tell my brother and me that we should wait to do something for our stepsister to be there, or she insisted on it and refused to let us go without her. And honestly, we resented it. And we did speak up, but mom said immediate family needed to be there for Christmas, for example. I told her she wasn't my immediate family, so I did not need to wait. My mom always resented the fact that we weren't with her every Christmas Eve because we would be with our paternal family, because thankfully our grandparents won some court-ordered time. But the thing is, she never made everything stop for us though. She would just tell us we could choose to be with the family or we could be going on with other people. And when she would say other people, she was meaning our family. Over time it got worse, with her saying, okay, well, why did you see this movie without your stepsister? Why go to the arcade this weekend instead of waiting for the other weekend so she can join? And this honestly was just such insanity. It really did a lot of harm to our relationship with my mom. Neither of us wanted or needed our stepsister included to enjoy it. Neither of us wanted to be forced to plan stuff around her, but we had no choice. Well, fast forward, and that is not how things are anymore. So needless to say, my mom was shocked that I put my foot down so strongly about it. She mentioned the immediate family and sibling thing, and I told her that I never once considered my stepsister my sibling or even my immediate family, and I will no longer plan things around her simply because her attendance is not essential to me. My mom started freaking out on the phone and saying it would really hurt her stepdaughter and husband's feelings to hear this, and how she wanted us all to be together for something as big as a wedding. She even said that she would pay the difference for a different day, but I said no. I told her that my days of catering to my stepsister's schedule are over, and right then and there, my mom went nuts on the phone. I ended the call and I'm dodging her calls and text messages now because she is very mad. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, but honestly, I am so glad that you stood up for yourself. Obviously, as a kid, you couldn't do that, and it sounds like your mom had a big control over what you could and couldn't do, especially when it came to whether or not your stepsister was involved. So for your mom to literally sit there and be like, you need to pick a different date for your wedding, like that is so insanely toxic, it's not even funny. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because what your mom is demanding is absolutely ridiculous. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids? Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I'm the mother of 2. The other day was my son's 5th birthday, and my husband and I threw a party at our home. In this party, party has caused a bit of a rift between me and my husband's twin sister, who we will call Eve. Eve and I don't have much in common, and usually I only see her during the holidays and special occasions. She and my husband are not particularly close either. For context, Eve has 3 kids, ages 9, 5, and 2. A few days before the party, Eve messaged me that she may not be going because it will be during the youngest nap time. I told her that her kid is more than welcome to sleep at our home, and we can put her up in our youngest bed. Eve said that she would think about it, but she would probably just not come. Now, Eve didn't message me or my husband again, so we assumed that she was not coming, but eventually she did turn up on the day. Maybe 5 minutes after she arrived, she asked if the bed was set up for the youngest, and I explained that we weren't expecting them, so I'll need a few minutes to get it ready. Eve then asked if we don't keep our kids' bedrooms tidy, which honestly really irritated me. Now, Eve's daughter did sleep fine. She did fuss a bit waking up, but at least the nap time issue was solved. She then saw the cake that we had for our son, which was hidden in our kitchen, so he wouldn't see it before it was time to blow out the candles. She said that her kids will not eat that kind of cake, which was a lemon cake if that really matters. Now, I know that a lot of kids are probably not keen on lemon cake, but it's what my son likes. So I told Eve that we did have some candy in our kitchen that her kids could have, just so they didn't feel left out of having a treat. They ended up leaving abruptly before we got the cake out, and only said goodbye to my husband. But then they came back with chocolate cupcakes from the corner shop, and they literally started serving them to their kids. This caused some of the younger kids at the party to start fussing because they wanted the cupcakes too, and there wasn't enough to go around. Eve also repeatedly connected her phone to our Bluetooth speakers so that she could play some of her music without asking us, and this is despite the fact that we already had music playing. And I asked her to stop because it was making the house sound like a mishmash of music, and she just responded by saying that I'm being a grump. Well, I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and after the party, I told her that the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids. She then called me selfish and said that I need to lighten up, and she and her family very quickly left after that. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law were still at our house, which really made things quite awkward. Eve has been giving my husband the cold shoulder ever since, and I'm now wondering if I'm the jerk in the situation, because now I'm really not sure how to make things right. No, you're not the jerk here. Eve not only didn't plan anything properly, but she also came off as really entitled. Like seriously, that's not okay. And just look at the way she acted at this birthday party. She was being super weird and just super rude. Like she even left to get cupcakes all because she didn't like the lemon cake that you were serving. Like that's super rude and super unacceptable. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because Eve was being a brat and she was not being considerate of everybody in attendance. Am I the jerk for freaking out when my mom asked me to let her reschedule my birthday plans, also that she could spend more time with her stepdaughter instead of me? Because right now I feel very neglected, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 15-year-old female, and for the longest time it was just me and my mom. I never knew my dad or really cared that I didn't know him, and I was really close with my mom, and I didn't want or need anything else. Our relationship was good, but I always sort of felt like she saw spending time with me as an obligation, and that she didn't want to do it as much as me. When I was 12 years old, she told me she had a boyfriend, and that she wanted him to move in with us alongside his daughter. Then she went on to talk about all the Zoom calls that she had with her, and that she had spent some time with her, and how she was a really great kid. She was the best. How she could be my little sister, and how my mom already saw her as another daughter. When I met my mom's husband, he asked a ton of questions about me because mom told him very little, yet my mom had listed off a bunch of stuff about his daughter, and for the sake of the story, we'll call this daughter Kelly. My mom spent all of moving in day being all around Kelly, and ended up leaving me with her husband. He didn't say much, but he just asked me for help once, and then I went to my room. Mom took Kelly out for a special dinner, while her husband and I got other stuff, and I got a frozen pizza and he made some sandwiches. After they moved in, mom spent a lot of time with Kelly. She still spent time with me, but she seemed so excited to spend time with Kelly, and I never saw her show that same excitement for me. I asked my mom why she was so much more excited about being with Kelly, and she told me that was the green-eyed monster talking, and she wasn't more excited to spend time with Kelly. I brought it up a few more times, but mom always said it was just my jealousy talking. But the thing is, I was and I am jealous, but I don't think I was seeing any green-eyed monster. She spoils Kelly and goes out of her way to get Kelly gifts. She boasts about all the stuff that she does too, and I never hear her mention me, which mom said was because I'm older and that she has mentioned me some of the time. My mom was supposed to take me to this place in November to celebrate my birthday, and it's a limited time thing happening, so we can't do it another time. But But yesterday, my mom sat me down after school and asked me to reschedule our plans so she can take Kelly to a concert on that day because Kelly will be with her grandparents the other days her thing is on. And at this point, I just freaked out and I asked my mom how she could make me give up something for Kelly because she knows that she can't reschedule our plans. I told her that I knew she liked Cammy more and I never should have tried talking to her before because this stuff was just all the proof. My mom told me to calm down and she said she was ashamed of my reaction. She told me I was too old to be acting like that and getting so jealous of sharing her. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all because it really does seem like your mom is playing favorites with your new stepsister. Like, I can understand spending time to get to know her, but at this point she's basically moving your life around and prioritizing Kelly over you. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled neighbors demand that we extend our retainer wall, stating that if we don't follow their exact orders, they will get us in trouble by reporting us to the city. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, this is really a stupid situation. I've lived in this house with my grandparents for about 6 years. When we moved in, we had this awful wooden retaining wall facing the neighbor's property. Her property is downhill from ours, so the retaining wall keeps our yard from washing away into hers. We found out last year that the wall was rotting and needed to be replaced, so we recently had it replaced with these beautiful retaining stones. We also extended the wall past where the previous wall had been. Now, we can't take it all the way to the street because of the city's guidelines, but it goes far enough. It could be extended by maybe 3 feet, but we couldn't afford to go any farther. Well, the neighbor who we had gotten along with until now didn't like any of this. She complained to us that our wall wasn't long enough and her yard was going to wash away, and she already had rivers running through her yard. We live on a street with no sidewalks, so everyone has ditches for drainage. She never cleans hers despite having huge trees dropping sticks and leaves into it, so her yard floods when it rains, and yet she blames us for that. She then said she could pay for the landscapers to extend the wall and then showed my grandma some brown retaining stones she said that she could get to try and finish the wall. Our wall is gray, so of course my grandma said no. The neighbor said that she couldn't deal with it and didn't want to be a jerk, but that she would report us to the city if she had to. So my grandma just said, okay, go ahead, and then she walked away. But seriously, what makes her think that she has any right to mess with our wall? Our landscapers even removed a stump from her property for her for free, and she never even thanked them for it. As far as we know, she either hasn't reported us to the city or the city told her to pound sand. She's tried to make conversations with me, but I simply won't talk to her. I have too much to worry about without having her try to manipulate me into talking to my grandma. Yeah, I've had neighbors like this in the past where they literally will complain about anything in front of them. I mean, would they rather have those stones lining the property or some crappy fence that's literally rotting away? So good for you guys for deciding not to get involved with this person, because chances are there's nothing wrong with your wall and they're probably just looking for something to complain about. My entitled Karen neighbor is constantly demanding favors out of me while also being loud and obnoxious at all hours of the night, and I seriously hope that I never have to deal with these people ever again. Here's what happened. So I'm in an area of Florida that gets a lot of tourists. However, we live in a family neighborhood and 90% of the people here are full-time residents with hardly any snowbirds and 2 schools right in the neighborhood. So essentially, it's a normal suburb. With a Gulf Coast 10 minutes away, we moved into this house in 2022. We are pretty quiet people, and we know the neighbors around us and have friendly chats in the yard, but that's about it. Basically, we like to just do our own thing. Well, the house next to us was bought by a couple from Maryland in February of 2023. We were happy to see the old neighbors leave, as they were an older couple that had nothing better to do than scream at each other. So, new people are doing stuff at the house, and when I'm in my side yard, I introduce myself to the wife. The wife seems super chatty and basically told me her life story. She goes on to tell me that they can't really afford this house that they bought for $500,000, but then they told me they're going to be doing short-term renting for the next 5 years just so they can try and cover the mortgage. Now, we used to live in an area that allowed short-term rental, and we specifically moved to a home that had no HOA or short-term rental. We hated living next door to a house that was always a party house, and we never knew who would be there. So I tell the wife that you are not allowed to do short-term rental here, but she just laughs and says, my realtor told me that we can, so I'm pretty sure we can. So, not wanting an argument, I just shrug my shoulders and I wish her good luck and go back to my garden. 3 days later, she's knocking on my door, asking for my phone number in case she needs to get a hold of me. Then she tells me that she is allowed to do 30 days or more rentals, and that this is what she's planning on doing. Now, I agree because I called the city myself as well, and I wished her good luck and then I went along my way. Over the next few months, I communicate with her through text messaging. She would ask me all the time to meet the HVAC guy, the sprinkler guy, or water the flowers, or to check and see if the last renters had left, and other random garbage. My husband is getting annoyed with her and saying that she needs to hire a local management company of some kind, and I'm really beginning to see his point. Fast forward, and I go on a trip to visit my family, and my husband stayed behind. He calls me on day 2 and tells me the new renters are so loud. They have parties until 1 in the morning. They are throwing pool toys over the fence, leaving beer cans in the grassy area between our driveways, and just generally being rude and obnoxious. My husband, being the quiet dude that he is, just puts on headphones and minded his own business. Well, eventually I came home on day 6 around midnight, and I was exhausted and ready to see my husband, and I wanted to kiss my dogs and go to bed. But it is a Tuesday night, and the renters next door are super loud in the pool. They're playing music, they're screeching while driving, they're yelling and laughing, and if this was 12 o'clock noon, then I wouldn't have a problem. But it is midnight on a Tuesday. I'm tired and I'm pissed. So I go to the front door and I knock for about 5 minutes. But then I realize, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Everyone is in the backyard partying. So I finally yell over the fence, "What are you doing? Do you mind keeping it down?" Well, some younger guy walks out and tells me to calm down, and I tell him to get lost, and that if the music and the yelling isn't down, I'm gonna call the sheriff. Well, guess who was at the house? It was the wife, the owner of the house. She then sends me a nasty text message, and she clearly sent it right as she was very drunk because it made no sense, and she essentially told me that if I ever threatened her son-in-law again, she would personally see to it that my time here was ruined, whatever that's supposed to mean. So I go to bed, and I send her a perfectly calm and pleasant text the next day, and I basically told her to kick rocks and lose my number. And wouldn't you guess it, she never responded. Well, fast forward, and guess who called me today? This lady had the audacity to ask if I could go into her house and help her out by testing the modem because her Wi-Fi is down and she cannot control anything in the house, namely the cameras, the door locks, or the thermostat. Well, I told this idiot that my services were no longer available and that she would need to call someone else from here on out. And when I said that, she got all huffy and she said to me, "Well, that was rude. I need someone right now." Well, I'm sorry, pumpkin. I'm not here to be at your beck and call. I am a helper at heart, but you definitely pissed off the wrong person. Yeah, this entitled Karen absolutely had this coming. She was not only an awful neighbor right off the get-go, but she also treated you like her personal servant and tried to demand unreasonable things out of you. Like seriously, who does she think she is? But despite all of that, I love the way you handled this. You told them straight up, you can either shut up or I'm gonna call the cops. Because seriously, with people like this might be the only way to get through to them and be like, wait, you cannot treat me like that. So good for you for standing up for yourself, and hopefully this lady doesn't give you any more problems. Because from the sounds of it, she sounds like an absolute nightmare to live next to. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My company's new entitled CEO demands that all of his employees swear loyalty to him and only him. So we decide to maliciously comply by literally throwing this guy a curveball he never expected. Here's what happened. So I'm a small worker bee in a company that got bought out by a much larger company earlier this year. Even though we were a small company, the teams were flexible and everyone helped each other. And the company was profitable, but not to the new ownership. Apparently, to them, our company was awful and needed to be immediately fixed with structure, hierarchy, and order. The managers I've worked so well with over the years are gone, and the new owners promised no change and that there was nothing to worry about, saying that everything will be the same, except that within a month, all the experienced managers who made the workplace so great to work for are let go. And what's even worse than that is that they've been replaced by emotionless walking husks resembling ghosts who have hammers as their only tool, and all of us are the nails. Never mind the incessant preaching of company spirit and loyalty and respect and company values. I mean, we all moan at these pep talks. We all yawn at the town halls. But then they make much less subtle threats. They say to us, "Oh, you're not a team player if you don't do all this other stuff. You need to work overtime or else that's not fair for everybody else." And they'll also actually complain if you leave on time again. The culture certainly has changed. I mean, for one, I didn't even dare to take off early to pick up my kids from school anymore. But finally, the toxic culture of fear and backstabbing. Every word said against the direction, even off the cuff in some kind of side chit-chat, and every facial expression or nonverbal gesture against the flow are immediately and harshly met with reprimands. For example, another worker bee was recently let go for restructuring despite having stellar work performance. And I guess it's because he just couldn't keep his thoughts to himself. So hopefully I painted a good picture of what life is underneath the iron fist that we deal deal with. Many of us are contemplating leaving, but the job market is quite depressing in our area. The cost of living is high, and we are afraid of being the neck that sticks out, so everyone just suffers in silence. The company recently appointed a new CEO who, in his opening introduction to everybody, demanded undivided loyalty to him specifically. It means we must follow his every direction. It means we must smile in his presence and be super upbeat. I think the expectation here is that we must cry like North Korean women in the presence of the supreme leader. So you want absolute loyalty? Well, I believe loyalty goes both ways, but we can show you loyalty if that's what you want. So we all got the message loud and clear. You want us to play Oscar-winning actors and actresses instead of actually getting work done and speaking our minds to make the company better? Sure thing, you got it. Now, for those of us who read and trust each other, we would have hours-long meetings with each other on topics that sound important but don't actually matter. We make sure our days are jam-packed full of discussions on how to move initiatives forward, but never actually discuss anything of substance, and never have aggressive action items to follow up on. And of course, we absolutely never forget to praise the leadership in the meeting minutes. Off the books though, there's lots of small talks, especially for the sake of team building. Whenever we're questioned by somebody higher up, we pull out the corporate roadmap and point to the initiatives we spent so many hours working on. We would defend our time with a budget that recently got rolled out and be like, look, we're doing what we need to do. We've even gone as far as requesting additional resources in next year's budget just to ensure that our very busy initiatives continue to make headway. So basically, we're creating the public perception of us being busy without actually doing anything. We were a lean, small company, but now we're a fat busybody where everything is bloated and compartmentalized. We shut our faces and we nodded. We clapped the hardest after every presidential speeches, and as a result, we lost money in the last several months. And I guess that's the price you pay to give one-sided loyalty, because trust me, all of us are still definitely looking for other jobs. Yeah, that sounds like an awful place to work at. Seriously, you've got a CEO being like, you have to be loyal to me. Like, that is so weird, and I just will never understand how someone would act like that. So good for you and your coworkers for sticking it back to this weirdo, and hopefully all of you can find a better job sooner than later. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my neighbors for half the cost of fixing a fence on our property line, as they refuse to give me any kind of invoice to prove that the job has actually been done? Here's what happened. Ever since we moved into our house, the fence between us and the neighbors, let's call them Sharon and Will, has been leaning towards their side. Despite no changes since then, Sharon recently demanded that it be fixed because they think it'll fall over any day now. Sharon had a landscaper that was already doing a job for them, and she said that he could fix the fence as well. Now, he couldn't speak English, so Sharon translated, but I didn't really understand what they were going to do. All I got was that they were going to use concrete on the posts. I told them that I also knew a builder, and I got him to take a look as well. My guy came along and thought it was better just to rebuild. He estimated the cost of materials would be about $1,000, and then we can negotiate labor costs just a little bit. I told Sharon the next day, and she just waved it off, saying her guy could do it for like $500. He was apparently coming back after the weekend, so I just waited for a proper quote. Well, 1 week later, Sharon texted to say that the work was done. The price was $600 and asked me to send her $300, meaning that she never gave me a proper quote. I told her I'm happy to split the cost, but I asked for an invoice and a description of the work done. She said that it was a cash job, and then she said to me, I thought you were my neighbor. Just give me the money whenever you're free. But I reiterated that because this concerns my property, I need a record of the work done and payments. But she again said that because it was a cash-only job, that there won't be an official invoice of any kind. I also asked about warranty, and she said it would be for 12 months. Later on, I had a look at what they had actually done, and all I saw was just 2 temporary wooden posts supporting the fence. The guy probably dug around the problem fence post and poured some concrete around it to fix the fence post in place. So needless to say, it did not look like a $600 job. I ignored her for a week while seeking advice from my local community center, who said that the costs of repairing a fence on a boundary are shared by the properties concerned, and that I'm within my rights to ask for proof of work done. I told Sharon that I was very unhappy with how she had gone about things, and that when dealing with a neighbor, there is a responsibility to make things proper and keep official records. I told her straight up, I cannot make any payments comfortably until I get that invoice. My main concern is that Sharon might be getting us to pay more. Sharon and Will look to be in their late 40s, and we're in our late 20s, so they might think that we're some kind of easy target. The landscaper was already working on another project for them, so we may just be helping them cover their cost. I'm also unhappy with a warranty being only for 12 months, as it really seems too short for a fence. Lastly, I'm concerned that if Sharon and Will move anytime soon, and the fence falls down again, then I would have no way of contacting or communicating with the landscaper, or having any proof they had a job done in the first place. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk for wanting an invoice from these people, because it really does sound like they're trying to scam you. Like seriously, all you need is like some kind of like written document saying how much it's gonna cost, as well as, I don't know, a copy of the warranty. Like if there really is a warranty for what, 12 months? Then there should be something written down to prove that, shouldn't there? And I just love the fact that Sharon's trying to be like, oh, we're neighbors, just pay me. Like what's the problem? Like that kind of guilt tripping is not gonna fly in my book. And it's so good to see that the original poster is not gonna take that either. Because in my opinion, she's absolutely trying to play you. And unless you get something in writing stating this is how much it's gonna cost, then in my opinion, you should not have to pay them until you receive it. Am I the jerk for finally telling off my mother-in-law after the way she's been treating me for several years now? Because right now my husband says that I'm at fault, but at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I are in our early 30s, and we've been married for a few years, but we've been together for 11. Throughout this time, we've often argued about my in-laws' behavior, but more specifically my mother-in-law. There are many examples I could make, but to sum it up, she has been controlling not only to my husband, but also to me, even going as far as pressuring my husband to make me do what she wanted regarding situations that didn't concern her at all. She's also been disrespectful towards me, as well as overall invasive and demanding. I mean, you name it, she's done it. The only thing she has not done is directly insult me to my face. I kept telling my husband I was over their behavior and to please put a stop to it, but he never really acted decisively, so my mother-in-law never really stopped. Time after time, I would put up a happy front and bite my tongue not to cause any drama, but because everything just keeps piling up, I'm always on the verge of blowing up whenever I'm around them. I told my husband I would like to limit contact at least for a while, but he insists that we go and visit. My husband is also aware of how much I'm affected by this. So anyways, we meet up and my mother-in-law starts with her usual antics. Now I stay quiet until I've had enough, and then I start talking back to her. Now I did not insult her, but I wouldn't let anything slide like I usually do, and highlighted every inappropriate or invasive comment. Well, when I did this, she was surprised and asked me what came onto me, stating that I never acted like this and so on and so forth. Well, in a fit of rage, and mind you, I wasn't yelling, and while speaking calmly and slowly, I told her that she's been disrespecting me for years and that this is what she was getting now, and that now that she's made her bed, she now has to lay in it. Well, things got tense and we ended up leaving. I am upset, but finally I feel liberated for standing up for myself. My husband seems torn, and obviously my mother-in-law is livid. My husband has now said that he agrees and understands my emotional state on the matter, but also wants to keep the peace and to just apologize. Well, I refused and said I would only be open to revisit the relationship if I see some changes and effort to at least be cordial and mutually respectful, while also stating that I absolutely will not apologize for anything I said because I mean it and I would do it again. Now, I also reminded him that he had many chances to stand up to them, and that I also said no one involved would enjoy it if I had to stand up for myself, and he just never took me seriously. I also said I never insulted her or yelled at her, so apologizing for my reaction to her comments sounds incredibly backwards. So am I the jerk for what I said and for not budging on this? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk, because this mother-in-law clearly had it coming. Like, you explained this to your husband multiple times. Either he can fix this situation or else you're going to fix it. And from the sounds of it, he definitely knew that you are not the person to trifle with. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way your mother-in-law was acting was completely inappropriate. My boyfriend is constantly teasing me with his money by saying that he's going to buy me all these expensive things but never following through. And at this point, I am so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years now, and I've noticed a weird pattern with his enjoyment of teasing me with luxury items. He has a good job that apparently earns a good living, and he has bragged in the past, stating that last year he made over $1 million in just his bonuses. Now, I say that he apparently earns that much because I'm honestly not sure if he's being truthful or not. I will say he goes all out on date nights with dinner bills between $400 to $500, so I know he actually does make a decent income. However, he may have exaggerated, and it's not like it matters to me at all. I don't care what he earns or what he spends on me. I'm just pointing out the picture he has painted himself for clarity. He always makes comments about buying us matching Rolexes or buying me a Porsche one day, which I always shrugged off. He'd start making those same comments in front of my family to the point where they've pointed out to me that he comes off as very phony. Now, before last Christmas, he walked me into a YSL store and asked me to pick out my Christmas present. So I excitedly tried on bags and eventually chose my favorite. He then took down all the details for the sales lady, and I left the shop all giddy thinking that would be my Christmas gift. A couple weeks go by and my mom spilled the beans that he had texted her and my sister pictures of expensive jewelry from somewhere else
else, basically asking for her opinion on what to get me for Christmas. So admittedly, my expectations were definitely raised. Christmas comes and I open my gifts, and they were all just normal items. Stuff like perfume, lip gloss, and pajamas, which again, I have no problem with. I just think it was strange to raise my hopes like that and also involve my family in some kind of way. And my mom and sister were very confused when I told them what I got. Then, a month later, I visited him for our 1-year anniversary, and one morning I gave him his card and a gift, which was a digital picture frame of our pictures and some memories from the whole year. And he says thank you, but doesn't even give me a card in return. Instead, he takes me out and actually takes me into a Cartier store, which is the same store he was supposedly going to get me jewelry from. So I thought to myself, oh okay, maybe he wanted to get me this for our anniversary instead of Christmas. So he has me trying on a bunch of different pieces and asking me to pick out my favorites. And when I do, he says, okay, maybe I'll get it for your birthday. And then we just leave the store. So I was very lost and confused yet again. So I asked him straight up if he even got me a card for our anniversary, and he said no. And when he said that, I was really hurt about the lack of effort made. And then this weird show of having me try on jewelry after opening his own gift that morning. It was just so weird to me. Then on my birthday, we weren't together, and my gift arrived in the mail. And it was just an Amazon Prime box with slippers, a Stanley cup, and a smart garden, which again is not a big deal, but I just don't understand why he keeps getting my hopes up for no reason. He also does weird things like getting mad that I take the subway. He'll say it's not safe and that he doesn't want his girlfriend in that position. And so I just explained that I can't afford to take Ubers everywhere, especially going to and from work every single day. But when I say that, it's almost like he can't even begin to comprehend that. So he brought this up in front of my sister one day, and she is way more bold and blunt than I am. So she says to him, well, if you don't want her taking the subway, why don't you put down your credit card in her Uber app right now so you know that she can afford it and is always safe? Well, he didn't even acknowledge her and just looked down at his phone. Like, what is the psychology behind this kind of behavior? Why do you think he constantly teases me in this way? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, your boyfriend is a liar. This guy is completely full of it. And seriously, anybody with half a brain can see that this guy is just not telling the truth at all. He does not make that much money. Like, this guy is completely talking right out of his rear end, and he's literally making all of this up. He doesn't make millions of dollars off of bonuses alone, and he definitely does not make anything close to that with just his normal salary itself. Like, this guy is straight up lying to you. There's no other way to put it. He takes you to these expensive places and has you try on jewelry and clothing, while also promising like Rolex watches and a Porsche one day, all under the guise that you'll continue to believe this stupid lie. But that's exactly what it is. This guy's lying to you. He doesn't have any of that, and he's just continuing this act because he literally put himself in a corner. So there is no situation where he's teasing you with his money. This guy just straight up doesn't have money, and in my opinion, that is a massive red flag. An entitled old jerk walks up to my 4-year-old daughter and steals her stuffed animal right out of her hands at a convenience store. And I'm honestly still in shock that this guy actually did that to us. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few days ago, and I can't believe I actually have a story to share. So I was standing in line at our local corner market with my daughter when this entitled jerk in front of us turns around, sees my daughter's favorite stuffed animal, and proceeds to walk right up to her and take it out of her hands and start walking away. This stuffed animal, her monkey from IKEA, goes with us literally everywhere. She's had it since she was a baby, and since she just started school, I've brought it with me to pick her up. She just finished her first week, so I let her pick out a piece of candy from the store to celebrate. Anyways, this jerk was walking away with her monkey, I guess trying to make some kind of joke, and she looks at me with the biggest tears welling up in her eyes. I want to yell at this guy, but instead, I smiled at my daughter, and I said, tell him that's not his and to give it back. It's not nice to take stuff that doesn't belong to us. Well, she instantly lights up and turns to him and says just as loudly, that is mine, give it back. He then turns around and is like, oh, I thought you found him for me. Can I have him? So I then give my girl a nod, and she says again very loudly, that is not yours, give him back to me right now. Well, after that show, he does exactly that and resumes his lurking. Now, I was really pissed off. First off, I was alone with my 4-year-old daughter, and this guy, although he was older, was like 6'3", and I'm literally 5'1". He literally did not say a word to us. He just turned around and walked up to us and took the monkey out of her hands. The clerk behind the counter was a young guy too, and he was just laughing, which made me even more angry. I know it's not his responsibility or anything like that, but we were the only other customers, and it just seemed like making us uncomfortable wasn't an issue. I'm still very pissed off, and I've told some of my mom friends who said that they would be pissed as well. This little market is right around the corner from my house, and one of my friends said that she would have taken a picture of him and posted the story to Nextdoor or something like that, and I wish I would have,
but it happened so fast. The crazy mom in me wants to go back and hopefully bump into him, just so I can tell him how disrespectful and really uncomfortable the whole thing was. But I also don't want to put myself in a position of conflict with some other random man. I mean, what is wrong with these people? What kind of idiot thinks it's okay to approach a young child and just take their stuff as a joke? We do not know you, and you have no idea what we're going through. It's honestly just all so baffling to me, and I really hope I never deal with this guy ever again. Let me tell you something right now, that is some creepy behavior. That guy had some nefarious intentions in my opinion, and he did not go up to that kid for random reasons just to try and like make a joke with them. Which also, by the way, is really freaking weird. You don't know that kid, and you definitely have no reason to go up to a child and steal their stuffed monkey and then run off. Like, what is that about? That is seriously so weird. And it's especially awful because this happened to your 4-year-old daughter. Like, why would someone do something like that? That is like some straight up bully behavior. And what about the cashier? Like, seriously, how useless were you? You sat there laughing the entire time, and sure, I can get that side of it, where you're thinking to yourself, okay, I don't get paid nearly enough to deal with this garbage. But if I saw something like that, especially geared towards a child, I would be like, buddy, you've got to go. Get out of my store. Like, that's weird behavior. No one should have to put up with that. But I also think the way you handled this with your daughter was perfectly done. You showed her that not only can she stand up for herself, but she can also speak up if something bad happens to her when you're not around. That is so valuable for a kid to know, especially if you get like separated for some reason. She now knows that she can speak up and make a scene, especially if some stupid old jerk is being creepy towards her. So truly, I hope you never deal with this guy ever again. But you know what? If you do see him again, be sure to have that phone ready and take a picture of this guy, because weirdos like that absolutely deserve to be embarrassed. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for having a breakdown after a friend of my boyfriend left me out of one of their game nights and refused to allow me to even show up and watch? Because right now I am seriously hurting, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about a year now. Now my boyfriend, who we will call Steven, is 31 years old, and I'm a 29-year-old female. Steven and his sister, who we will call Rowan, are friends with a couple who they play D&D and board games with. Since dating Steven, I've met them a few times and joined them in dinners. Now I was aware that the wife, who we will call Lily, and Steven had slept together casually in the past, but I honestly wasn't bothered by it. Recently, they hosted a game night and only invited Steven and Rowan. I work irregular hours and only have one day off a week, which is typically when Steven and I get to spend any time together. I felt hurt and confused about not being invited because in my experience, partners are usually included in social events, and I've always done the same for others. I told Steven how I felt, explaining that I was stressed out from work, and for reference, I have an emergency response type role, and it was a rough week, and because of that, I did not want to spend the night alone. Well, he spoke with Lily, who then said that they only wanted the 2 siblings because it was a 4-person game. Steven then put me on the phone with Lily and pushed me to tell her about my mental health struggle and why I wanted to come, even if just to watch. And so I did just that, even though I'm an extremely private person and never allow vulnerability outside of close relationships. She said that she sympathized but still refused, and suggested that I find other coping mechanisms, like using a weighted blanket instead of relying on Steven for support. Well, I ended the call feeling upset, and I had a meltdown afterwards. I told Steven that I did not want to visit Lily and her husband again, but encouraged him to go and enjoy himself. I did not want to appear clingy and keep him from his friends, even though I was really struggling emotionally. With their explanations that exclusivity at such events is normal, I'm questioning whether I overreacted. I'm worried that their reason might be personal or discriminatory, and for reference, I'm of a different race and culture than all 3 of them. Or maybe it's just the fact that they don't accept me as his girlfriend. I also wonder if my stress and ADHD rejection sensitivity influence my reaction. So am I the jerk for asking to come even though I wasn't invited, and then reacting so strongly to the refusal? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, but Lily is literally the scum of the earth. Here you are just wanting to spend time with your boyfriend, and Lily says, no, you're not invited. Go get a weighted blanket if you need coping mechanisms. Like, that is such a trashy thing to say to somebody, and in my opinion, it was completely over the line. Also, what is Steven's problem? Like, seriously, your girlfriend is having a rough time. She just had one of the worst weeks she's ever had, and she is just wanting to spend time with you for like a little bit. Like, if he really cared about the original poster, he would step up and be like, wait a second, no, I want my girlfriend here. She can watch and just sit in the corner. Or even being like, hey, I'm gonna sit out this game night and come another night. Or something like that. Like, literally, he just rolled over and played dead the second Lily was like, wait a second, she can't come along. Who cares cares if it's a 4-person game? A 5th person can happily watch from the sidelines and enjoy themselves just as much as anyone else. Like, I've been a part of game nights before where people bring extra people for like a game that can't accommodate everybody, and no one's ever had a problem with it. Everyone has still had a good time and it all works out. So it really just baffles me that your boyfriend as well as Lily are like, no, you can't come along, sorry. Like, clearly they only cared about you not being there instead of being like, yeah, come along, this will be fun. And it doesn't seem like you've done anything to like disrupt their game nights or any of the dinners or activities that they do together as a group. So I think you might be onto something. This behavior really does seem targeted in some kind of way. So truly, based on what you described, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think Steven is absolutely at fault for not defending you or at least staying home that night. And I also think that Lily is the scum of the earth, because the way all of this went down, in my opinion, is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to pitch in and help pay for a house that we're trying to buy? Because right now she's saying that I should pay for it simply because I make more money. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old male, and I'm married to the love of my life, a 33-year-old female. My wife is kind, nurturing, and motivated in her career. She does a lot for me at home since I work long hours, and we got married about 4 months ago and dated for 8 years in total. We're both easygoing and have the same sense of humor, and we rarely argue. I work in healthcare, and I make about 4 times as much money as she does, but she makes a good salary as well. Since I make that much money, I tend to pay for most things. Stuff like dinners or weekend trips or mall shopping, which I absolutely do not mind doing. With bigger purchases, we pay for things together in proportion to what we make. She is usually okay with paying her share of things, like 1/4 of the rent and the groceries, and will sometimes offer to pay for dinners and dates. Now, she is very close with her 4 best friends. Now, they are great people, but they're basically attached at the hip, and they talk daily in a group chat, which is fine. Everyone needs a support system. I mean, I myself have similar friends. Well, she and her 4 friends have a combined savings account together that they're going to use for investing in something together. They've each been putting in a few $100s per month each. I've known about this for years, and I didn't love the idea initially, which I definitely expressed, but she was adamant that she wanted this, and at the time, we weren't hurting for the money, and it was ultimately her money and her decision. We are now looking to buy a home in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the United States, and she expresses that she doesn't have that much in terms of her own savings, but has $20,000 of her own money tied in with her friends' combined savings. Over the last year, they've been told by 2 financial advisors that 5 people attempting to invest together in real estate or stocks, or even in a business, wasn't a great idea, and they also recommended to split the funds into 5 separate accounts since the account is under one of the friends' names, and there are tax implications for having that amount of money to her name. Now, the homes that we're looking at need around a $70,000 down payment, and I stated I was willing to spend nearly all of my savings for the down payment for the home, and that would equal to about $50,000. So I told her that she should pull that money from her joint friends account so that she can help with a down payment. It is a huge purchase, and I don't think it should be my burden alone. Well, when I said that, she got really upset. She then told me, I don't want to touch that money. I promised my friends it would be for investing together. We should look for a less expensive home then, maybe a fixer-upper. She then said to me, it would be easier for you to accrue the money back since you make so much more. And this was really frustrating to hear. I said to her, it's unfair that I have to spend nearly all of my savings and you don't. Your friend fund is stupid, and it's stupid not to use that money for our future home. So am I the jerk for asking her to use her own cash from her friend's account and break that promise to her friend so that we can actually buy a nice home together? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk, because she's not only delusional if she thinks that money's going to be invested in anything with her friends, but also incredibly selfish to be like, you make more money than me. You can pay for it and get all that money back no problem. Like, what is going on right now? That doesn't sound smart at all. It is incredibly selfish of her to act like this is somehow your problem alone, while she herself is not taking any accountability. And also, the fact that she has a group account under someone else's name for investing in whatever, in my opinion, is a dumb idea, and that is only going to get everybody else burned. Like, there's no way I would ever agree to do that, because that is seriously so stupid. She literally has $20,000 sitting in another person's bank account, and if she really thinks she has any ownership over that money, she is literally insane. The second she would deposit her money in that account, she basically lit that money on fire and said, okay, that's no longer mine. Like, that is insanely stupid, and she threw away $20,000. So I don't think you're the jerk at all for trying to speak reason to her and saying, look, this investment thing is not going to happen, but we can definitely invest in our home and in our future. Because right now, as it stands, your wife basically doesn't have any money saved up, and that is not fair for you and your marriage advantage in the slightest. An entitled Karen at the pool simply didn't want to wait her turn, and as a result, she literally ruins everybody's day. Here's what happened. Okay, so I witnessed this at the pool the other day. I was sitting on a bench waiting for family, and I saw this all go down. Our community pool has several lanes roped off away from the general swimming area where people can do laps if they want to. If you're waiting for a lane to open up, you wait by that side, and when someone has finished, whoever was waiting first takes the open spot. People are usually civil about it, and it's never an issue. Well, all the swimming lanes are being used, and this lady decides that she doesn't feel like waiting for a lane and just goes down the stairs into one of the lanes. She then waves her hands under the water so that the swimmer can see her. Now, this guy, to his credit, was way too nice. He comes up and she starts whining about how all the lanes are full, while also asking when he's done and how the other swimmers are taking forever. The guy then explains that he just started and the other swimmers might be done pretty soon. But no, this lady absolutely cannot wait. She complains some more, and then she says something like, "Oh, your lane is wider, can't you just share it?" And believe it or not, the guy actually let her share it. So then they're both crammed into this lane, and she's like flailing around and splashing water everywhere. It seemed like she was trying to bother the guy just to get him out. My family came over at this point, and we went to the other side of the pool, but I did see the guy get out not long afterwards. And I hope he got another swimming lane again, because honestly, that behavior was super obnoxious. And by the way, the lanes are narrow, so only one swimmer goes at a time. I've been coming here for years, and that's how it's always been. If the lanes are full, sometimes people will swim next to them in the general swimming side of the pool. And you know what? This lady absolutely had that option. But instead, she chose to bother someone who already had a lane. Yeah, that's really obnoxious, and I've seen that myself when I've gone to like the gym or somewhere like that. You always have that one person who like cannot wait their turn at all, and they feel their schedule is way more important than literally everybody else around them. And that's not fair at all. If you're gonna go to a community pool or community anything, then maybe, just maybe, you should act like a community and not be so selfish, because it really wouldn't have taken that much for her to wait her turn. She clearly has the time set aside to be swimming at a community pool, so for her to be like, "Oh my god, I can't wait, get out of the pool, I'm gonna share the lane with you," like that's super entitled, and it honestly is so uncalled for. And I'm right there with the original poster. That guy in the lane was way too nice. He should have told her to get lost and find another lane, because this was her plan the entire time. She would try to share the lane, but then eventually make it impossible for him to swim around. So yeah, that was some really entitled behavior, and I honestly cannot stand when people act this way. Am I the jerk for leaving a surprise party that was meant to celebrate me beating a cancer that I didn't want anybody to know about? Because right now I am very upset with my wife for telling everyone what was going on, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 35-year-old male, and I am a very private person. I have no social media, and I don't even want my wife posting photos of me. Although I don't tell her not to, I just don't ask her to post me. When it comes to celebrating Father's Day or my birthday, I don't like attention on me, and I prefer to keep things low-key whenever I can. So keeping that in mind, I was diagnosed with an extremely curable type of skin cancer. It was caught very early on, and I never felt scared for my life in any way, shape, or form. I'm an engineer, and I think analytically, and I wasn't scared with the diagnosis, with literally a 3% fatality rate. Even still, I told my wife, and of course, she was terrified. We talked through it, and I told her my doctor was very optimistic and said we've caught it early on. But none of it seemed to help out, but at least I tried. After a while, I told her that we shouldn't tell our kids who were 5 and 7 years old, and my wife still wanted to tell them. But I was adamant about that because I'm not even sure they would understand what we were talking about. So reluctantly, she agreed not to. About a week later, I get a call from my dad asking about my cancer. It turns out my wife posted on Facebook about my cancer that morning, so I called her, and I wasn't happy that she posted my business, and her excuse was to say, "Well, you didn't say I couldn't post it, just not tell the kids." There is no way she would think I wanted that posted online, no matter what I said. So she took it down, and time went by. Very quickly, I was in remission with my skin cancer, and my doctor told me word for word, "We don't like to say you're cured, but you're cured." And I told my wife, and she was ecstatic. She told me she was worried all this time, and I definitely could tell, and was glad that we could put this all behind us. And honestly, I thought we could put all this behind us too. That is until this weekend when I'm coming home on Friday. I see a lot of cars parked on the street and some in my driveway. I couldn't think of any birthdays or anniversaries that I might have missed, but I went in anyways, and that's when I find out it was a party for my remission diagnosis. I was mortified at this. She's never done anything like this, and we've talked about how I would hate a surprise party multiple times. I asked what this was for. I said to her, "I'm sorry, but I didn't know you planned this. I'm just coming home for some files and heading back to work." But you know what? It was a lie. I gathered up some meaningless files in my office, and I said thanks to everyone for coming, and I left to go back to my office office, messing around on my phone until everybody left. My wife knew that I was lying, and we fought that night, and I told her I don't know what's gotten into her, but she knows I would never want this, and she doesn't get to make a big deal out of something personal I never wanted to be public in the first place. We've now been cold this entire week, and my brother said that I'm the jerk, since I told him I just pretended to go to work. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this is unbelievably intrusive, and I would be very pissed off as well. This wasn't even like a cancer worth celebrating. Like, this is literally a curable cancer that they probably fixed right away. So the fact that your wife posted this on Facebook, but also throw a party that you definitely did not want her to throw, in my opinion, is super toxic and very intrusive. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My entitled coworker demands that I seat customers while I'm off the clock. And despite the fact that I tried to explain this to her, she simply didn't care about what I had to say and still demanded that I do my job basically for free. Here's what happened. So I came in early to work, like almost an hour early, so I could order food and eat before my shift. While I'm waiting, I'm sat at the table that shares one side of a half wall with the host stand on the other side of the wall. That means when you're sat in the booth that's against the wall, people can see you when they walk in. We have a new hire that's been doing very well, and he was hosting alone until the next host came in soon, since we'll have 2 hosts in the evening and 1 in the afternoon. As I wait, it's now 30 minutes before my shift, and I'm about to get up to check on my food when these regulars come in. A very nice but sometimes demanding couple. They saw me and just said hi, and I let them know the host will help them soon, since I don't want to sit someone off the clock and mess with the rotation. And I did this because I also host, but I was on Expo that night, and I hated anyone who wasn't hosting that shift that would mess with the rotation and just start sitting people, because it can very quickly become a disaster. The new hire is just finishing up checking out a to-go order, and he says he'll seat them in just a minute. So I got up and I went to check on my food. As I almost get to the kitchen, a server stopped me, who, by the way, very much hates me, all because I follow the rules and guidelines for doing things, and she likes to lie and manipulate so she can get more tables, as well as the best tipping tables at that. She's even done it to her friends that work here too. The server looked at me and said, "Aren't you going to sit them?" And I said to them, "No, the host is up there." And he said he's going to take care of them in just a minute. The server then looks over and says, "Oh, is he taking a phone order?" But I respond by saying, "No, he's just checking someone out. He was just finishing up when they came in." This server then catches an attitude with me. She says to me, "So, you could sit them. They are regulars. They can't just be made to wait." I responded by saying, well, they didn't have an issue with it, and they were just fine with waiting. And you know what? He's right there. My shift has not started yet. The server then looked at me and said, "Doesn't matter, you should have sat them." And I just walked away after that, and she was angry with me the rest of the shift. Is it so wrong that I don't want to work yet before my shift? I even told a coworker who also thought that I should have just done it. So I'm honestly done with this weird attitude, and I hope I don't deal with that ever again. Yeah, there's no way I'm ever gonna work for free. The original poster has it right. Like, if I'm off the clock and I'm in there eating food, guess what? Right now I'm a customer. I'm not gonna be someone that's gonna jump up and do extra work for nothing. I don't get paid nearly enough to do that, and there's no way anybody's gonna force me to do that. And you know what? If that server really was so concerned about these regulars, and they really wanted to get them a table and get them settled in, then they could have walked up and done it themselves. The second they realized that you were not clocked in, should have been the first instinct for them to be like, "Oh wait, I shouldn't be bothering you. Sorry about that, my bad." So her selfish attitude, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate, because in my opinion, under no circumstances should anybody be working while off the clock. An entitled creepy jerk demands that I take off my mask at work, demanding and begging that he be able to look at my face as I'm checking him out. But after I tell this weirdo no several times, he then freaks out and starts to swear at me, claiming that he's gonna try and get me fired with my manager, all because he couldn't look at my pretty face. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened just a little over an hour ago. I'm a cashier overnight and I wear a mask. And honestly, I wear it because I want to. I joke and say stuff like, "Oh, people stink," or "I just don't feel like wearing makeup," or even that I'm tired of hearing that I should just smile more, which honestly is all technically true. I had a male customer come in, and my father was also stopping by to drop off some food, with a third guy coming in as well. All 3 of them were fine. I chatted with my father while the other 2 shopped, and once they were ready, my father wandered off and let me do my job. The first guy comes up and has a couple of items, and then he asks for a pack of cigarettes behind me. I get his ID and I grab the pack, and then he asks me, "Well, why are you wearing a mask?" And I am used to this question, so I quickly reply by saying, "Well, I like to wear it." He then looks confused and asks me the same question again, and I repeat my answer a bit slower, thinking that maybe he just didn't hear me, as I do tend to talk fast. I have been compared to a TV auctioneer here before, especially when it's something that I've said many dozens of times. But now this man looks angry. He says to me, "Well, why can't I see your face?" I responded by saying, "You do not need to see my face. Will that be all, sir?" He then gets really indignant. He says, "Oh, come on, I just want to see your face." But I say it again, you do not need to see it, sir. You are not entitled to my face. It was then that he said something that honestly blew my mind. He said to me, "You're a rude jerk." But instead of jerk, he swore at me. I said to him, "Okay, sir, have a nice day." And I motioned to the door, trying to get him to leave, since he managed to pay while all this was going on. He then says to me, "Oh, just show me your face. I mean, come on, are you diseased or something?" But I respond back by saying, "You do not need to see my face. Have the day that you deserve, sir." At this point, the man was flipping out on me. He says to me, "You're such an ugly jerk, you rude idiot. I was trying to be nice." But I just fired back at him and I said, "Well, you failed in that regard, sir. Have the day that you deserve." The man then said, "I'm going to complain they have an absolute jerk working here." And I just responded back by saying, "Well, my manager arrives at 6 o'clock in the morning." Again, motioning to the door. The man eventually leaves, still flipping me off in the process. And I noticed during the entire interaction, both the second guy and my father were staring daggers into the angry man. Now, I know my father. He carries and has a license to, if you know what I mean. And if the man had gotten physical across the counter, it would have not ended well. My father has a bad temper, and I still walk on eggshells around him. The second man I'm also sure is retired and likely also carries. He's a regular who has always been very polite to me. He asked me if I was okay and said that he would stay in the parking lot for an extra 10 to 15 minutes just to make sure the angry man wouldn't come back inside, and I really thanked him for that. Well, that's when my father, the delightful man that he is, decided to chime in on this situation. Once both customers had left, he said to me, "You know, you could have been nicer," and then proceeded to explain how bad that would have gone and his train of thought for if the man had gotten violent with me. He is a narcissist and one that I've learned to handle. So I went on about how being nice to men like that means becoming the doormat they expect. That if I had been a man with a mask and I'd given him the exact same first response, he would not have taken any issue with it. My dad then says, "Well, no one wants to see a dude's face, and I should not have to be considered a less than human who has to answer to his demands because I'm a pretty female. But because I'm a woman who wears a mask and I stand behind a counter, I'm just not a human being to that man. If I was a man behind this counter, he would not have even asked a question like that." I do not take pride in this, not even being one of the worst reactions to me wearing a mask, but it was the first time I've had to witness such an interaction, and I honestly just wanted to vent about it, because for most of these, I don't really think about it because I block out most of the interaction, because I've really gotten all too used to people getting mad, all because I like my pretty designed mask. I also did text the incident to my manager, so she does know of the situation, in case he does come back or try to call and complain, because people like that truly are the worst, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Wow, that is such an awful situation for so many reasons. For starters, that guy was super entitled in like one of the worst ways possible. He somehow felt he was entitled to seeing your face all because you were wearing a mask. Like, dude, what are you doing? You can't just demand somebody take off a mask so you can look at their face. You're not entitled to it. That is really creepy. Because I'm sure some people would be like, "Can you please put on a mask? You're really ugly." Especially with the way this guy was acting. Like, seriously, it's insane to treat someone like that. But on that note, I love the way you defended yourself. You told this guy, "Absolutely not. I'm not giving in to your weird demands." Because why should you? Like, that was not going to benefit you in the slightest, and it would only serve this guy's weird purpose of seeing your face. Like, I think there really was a creepy intention behind that, if you know what I mean. And that is not even something I ever want to think about. Like, seriously, what a weirdo. Now, when it comes to the way your dad acted, that is so unbelievably awful. Like, talk about disappointing. Here he is watching this guy scream and cuss at you for not taking off your mask, and then after like what, maybe 2 seconds of this guy leaving, he stands there and says, "Wow, you made that a lot worse. You could have at least been nicer." And it's like, what are you talking about? This guy literally just cussed out your daughter and you're sitting there blaming her for that? Nothing she did in that interaction deserved this kind of treatment, like at all. So that's honestly really disappointing, but I think you also handled yourself really well in that scenario too, because you hit the nail on the head. If you were a guy, none of this would have happened in the first place. He would have never asked you to take off your mask, and he wouldn't have been so obsessive about you turning him down and saying no. So truly, good for you for standing up for yourself, because you had no right to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that he can't go climbing with his friends, but instead he has to do home renovations like he said he would in the first place? Because right now he says I'm being unreasonable, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I decided to renovate the bathroom because there was water damage from a toilet that had been leaking. It was mostly my idea to renovate, but not just for aesthetics, as mold was growing at the bottom of the vanity and the sheetrock. He agreed to renovate, but really had very little interest in the process. He has untreated ADHD and really does not enjoy home maintenance. With that being said, it became my job to apply for loans, search for contractors, schedule the contractors to come out, etc. It was a lot of mental work and I did it alone. He did agree to save the money and offer to demo the bathroom himself, and I was hesitant at first because he is not usually motivated to do things in the house, and also due to the ADHD, his timeline and processing speed is very slow, and oftentimes things just don't get done. He promised me many times that he wanted to do it. I sent him screenshots of the calendar and I told him the days that he would start. The whole week leading up to the demo day, I mentally prepared him. I mean, we've been together for 21 years, so I know how he is. He will say that he forgot, or it will seem like brand new information to him, so every day he gets a reminder. Fast forward to last night, and the night before the demo is to start, he sends me a message asking if he can go climbing with his friends. But I said I would prefer if he just did the demolition like we agreed. He only has 2 days off, so I said no, I'm sorry, you cannot go. Well, this turned into an almost hour argument back and forth about how the weather won't be good for the rest of the days, and that he can just do it then. But again, I know him. He waits until the last minute and something may go wrong. We may need to call for extra help or something like that, and I always have a sense of urgency, and he has none, and it makes my life very difficult. To add to that, he also has a job where he can often do his hobbies. He climbs with his work friends, he goes hiking, he goes skiing, and all this other stuff. When he has days off, he goes for bike rides for hours, meaning that he is absolutely not deprived of leisure time, but I am. I'm a teacher, so I've been home all summer being responsible for my kids 90% of the time, and I'm up with them in the morning, taking them out for activities all day, and I'm putting them to sleep. On top of that, I've cleaned up after the kids and his messes every single day. I haven't had a day of fun the entire summer, so I feel anger and resentment constantly. Our fight ended with him telling me that it makes no sense to tell him that he has to start on this day, and that he'll just do it the next day. He says that I'm the one being unreasonable, and everyone else will agree with him and not me. Also, to add, today is Thursday, and our tile guy comes in on Monday, and the entire bathroom needs to be completely gutted by the morning. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. If you guys scheduled this together, then he needs to do his part and get to work. He can't just put this off because it's more convenient to go rock climbing. Like, of course that's more convenient. Anything would be more convenient than having to work on the bathroom. Like, the excuse could be anything, but I think the original poster's rationale is still right. You said you were going to do it today, so you have to do it. And who knows if this is going to be ready by Monday if you don't do it now. This might be a multi-day job, like you just don't know. Something could go wrong. So yes, I think the original poster is absolutely in the right, and I think the husband in this story is not thinking straight. Because if he was, he would be way more ambitious about getting the work done. An entitled customer decides to make a joke at my expense after I literally had just dropped a plate at our restaurant and burned myself in the process. Here's what happened. So this happened last night and I'm still trying to get over it. So on the rare occasion, I tend to break an empty glass at my restaurant, and it's honestly no big deal. We all do it. It happens maybe once every few months. However, in the almost 3 years that I've worked at this place, I haven't dropped any plates in nearly 2 years. I took a lot of pride in that since I was a bit of a klutz when I first started, and this is my first and only experience in a restaurant. Last night, I was working expo and carrying out these 2 large plates of ribs. Our kitchen space is a bit tight. It's a small business, so the exit and entrance into the kitchen is this archway that's mostly taken up by a fridge just inside. Our ribs come with this homemade barbecue sauce that's taken straight from a pot in the serving section of the expo window. So as you can probably gather, it is very hot, since it's constantly kept in boiling water and under a lamp so hot that I've watched one of the cooks light a birthday candle with it. As I was carrying the plates, I moved just a bit too fast and slammed one right into the wall as I was trying to move the plates in a way that I could go through the archway. Startled, I stumbled back a bit, but that caused the sides and the ribs to slide forward. I'm usually amazing at regaining balance and stopping huge accidents, and I've even prevented some sauce from spilling when being body slammed on accident by a fast-moving server. But this time, I was just too surprised and I fumbled it. Both plates launched forward, not helped by me trying to lean and maneuver maneuver fast enough forward to try and physics them back into place. Well, they crashed to the ground, breaking all over the place. Not to mention that my hands were coated in that barbecue sauce, and it really hurt. Like, I've accidentally spilled some on my hands before, and that stuff actually can cause some bad burns. I was too shocked and I just screamed loudly in pain, and my hands were trembling from how hot it was. A server rushed over and he quickly took care of my hand, telling me that it was okay and that it happens to the best of us. But my biggest concern was that I dropped a plate, a customer's food, and I felt so terrible and ashamed about it. He usually likes to tease me a lot when I mess up. It's just kind of a friendly dynamic that we have, so I appreciated that he waited until hours later when I was feeling better to tease me about it. A couple of kitchen staff cleaned it up and told me to go get my hand under some water, and a regular customer that we have who is a fireman offered to look at it too, including another regular who's also a nurse. After all was said and done, I was mostly good, but my hand was still shaking and sore from being burned, so it was pretty red and swollen, stinging sometimes, and I was just upset about what happened. A couple minutes afterwards, I ran plates to a table and I was setting them down. This was an older couple, and the husband looked at me and said, "Oh good, so it wasn't our food that got dropped. It's at least nice to know that you at least didn't manage to drop these too, huh?" Now when he said that, I didn't say anything. I didn't laugh whatsoever, and I didn't even smile. I just stayed silent, and I walked away fast after setting their food down, which made him look at me weird. And honestly, I was so upset. Like, it's one thing if it's someone I work with that I have a friendly banter with, who waits until I'm feeling better hours later and fine with it. But it's another if you're a customer and it's just making fun of the person who just got visibly hurt and everybody could see it. Maybe I'm sensitive, but that was just not the time to be saying something like that or making fun of a complete stranger for dropping things and then getting hurt. Like, everyone heard me scream and saw what happened. So the fact that he would say that was so uncalled for. Wow, that guy's a massive jerk. He seriously decided to try and crack a joke with you as if you guys were friends in some kind of way. You literally just burned your hands on hot food and this guy's like, "Oh, well at least he didn't drop our food." It's like, dude, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me like that? And the original poster is right. Like, if you knew this person and there was some kind of like rapport between the two of you, then sure, let's joke around and have a good time. But this is not that situation. You don't know him from anywhere, and here he is chiming in and being like, "Oh wow, you dropped the food. Glad it wasn't ours." So no, I don't think you're being sensitive by being offended by that, because if I had just got burned on hot food, I would be feeling the exact same way. My entitled father unleashes his rage on me after I call him out for being a narcissist, forcing me to defend myself in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so my father and I have always had a strained relationship. I'm a 37-year-old male and my dad is 64 years old. He never prioritized fatherhood or his family, and he is the fifth of 6 children and the only male from my grandparents. And this will be important for context to his personality. He has adult spoiled baby syndrome, and this led to him throwing a temper tantrum anytime he does not get his way. And I use the term temper tantrum now because that's what I see when he is raging and angry. Growing up, my father was awful. He was bad to my mother, my stepmother, to me, and least of all to my younger sister. The best way to describe him is as a bully. He's a big guy. He's 6'2" and he's 250 pounds. But he likes to use his size and anger as intimidation tactics. He does that by biting his lip, hunching his shoulders forward, clenching his fists, and talking through a closed jaw, which really gives off the vibe that he's gonna be violent. I had my absolute fill of this in my youth and left for the military as soon as I could. Fast forward 15 years later, and my dad keeps his tired ways of anger and intimidation. An event took place a couple of weeks ago where my father was dog sitting at my house while I was at school on Saturday. For context, I don't drink, but my dad does daily. For the 10-year anniversary of losing 6 friends in Afghanistan in May of 2013, I purchased myself a very good bottle of bourbon. The bottle sat unopened in my office for over a year, and this past May, I finally cracked open the bottle and I poured myself one small shot. I sat with my dog and I sipped my drink and celebrated the men that I feel so honored to have known. I left school a little early that day to drive back to my house, hoping I could meet my dad and we could go out for dinner or something like that. Well, when I get home, he's not there. And then I walk in to see my kitchen completely out of order and that the bottle of bourbon is half gone. Now, I realize it is just alcohol. There is nothing significant about this particular brown liquid. However, it was still important to me. The bourbon was well hidden and placed in a high and discreet place, but there were several bottles of wine on the counter that were all housewarming gifts. When I call my father about it, he belittles his actions. He blames me, deflects, and then he insults me. When I hold his feet to the fire and call him out for his narcissistic tactics, he flips that old angry switch right back on. He then showed up to my house screaming at me, charging at me in my backyard. He was about 6 inches from my face yelling at me, and I backed away from him about 3 times. times. On the fourth time, he took a step towards me and that was it. So I launched at him. I went at him offensive lineman style with both hands to the chest, with every single ounce of strength that I could find. He fell back about 15 feet and landed on his back. Then I jumped on top of him and completely immobilized him. I didn't hit him or take any more advantage of his compromised position. I then yelled into his face and I said, "Do you see the power dynamic now?" I then got off of him, expecting him to get up and be in a full-fledged fight physically with my father. Well, he got up and screamed at me, called me by my mother's maiden name, to which I replied, basically implying that he hits women. And every single vulgar or nasty thing he said to me, I just kept repeating my insult. Well, my sister called me a few days later, telling me that my father had broken 2 ribs, to which I responded, "Good, hopefully he learns his lesson." Now, I'm not proud of my actions, but I never wanted to be physical or violent at all. I never wanted this kind of relationship, but honestly, everybody has their breaking point. Good for the original poster for defending themselves. And yes, in my opinion, this absolutely is a self-defense situation. This guy was up in your face, screaming at you, charging you in your backyard. You tried to de-escalate and get away from him, 3 times? But this guy kept coming at you and just not letting this go. Not to mention him trespassing on your property and being all up in your face. No, I don't think so. So in my opinion, the way that you retaliated and stopped the situation is completely justified. This is not the time to be nice and try and talk through the situation. It's time to literally do anything you can to keep this guy away from you. So hopefully this guy did learn his lesson and he stays away from you and doesn't try to mess with you in this way ever again, because this behavior is really toxic and very scary, and you should absolutely never have to deal with that. Am I the jerk for refusing to wake my boyfriend up in the morning, as he is constantly sleeping through his alarms and is always incredibly angry and very grumpy with me early in the morning? Because right now he's on the verge of getting fired for being late to work, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now, and during our entire relationship, he has struggled with waking up in the morning because of his ADHD. He sleeps through all of his alarms, which usually means that he is late for work. Sometimes it's only 10 to 15 minutes, but it can also stretch to up to an hour. His boss likes him and has given him plenty of chances, but yesterday he got his last warning that if he doesn't show up on time, he will lose his job. We have had a couple of discussions and arguments about this over the last year because he believes it's my responsibility as his girlfriend to wake him up, but I don't. Despite me waking up from his alarms and being able to shove him out of bed if need be, I don't think it's my responsibility. He is an adult. He has known about his ADHD since he was a child and should by now have found some method that works. Him making it my responsibility turns me into a caregiver and a mother instead of a girlfriend. This doesn't mean I refuse to help him whatsoever. I have done plenty of research to find alternative methods, but either it didn't work or he refuses to do it. And I do wake him up when his alarm goes off, but he decides to go back to sleep right afterwards. Had he not done that, I would gladly wake him up every single day. And I know this is only my perspective and is most likely not true from this, but when he decides to go back to sleep, it makes it seem like he doesn't want to try. Not to mention the fact that he is especially grumpy and angry in the mornings and have on several occasions yelled at me for both waking him up and for not waking him up. And I don't want to help if he's just going to get mad, even though I know that he doesn't mean it. But when his boss gave him his last warning yesterday, I felt so much guilt because had I just woken him up and been persistent, he wouldn't be in this situation. So I'm at an impasse. Is it my responsibility? I mean, am I in the wrong for not helping him out? Or should he, as an adult, be able to do this all by himself? Because I really feel like a jerk right now and I just don't know what to do. Okay, this is definitely not your fault. You are not the reason your boyfriend is not waking up on time. For reference, this is a 25-year-old man. At this point, there is literally no excuse for not waking up on time. He is absolutely responsible for his job and his actions, meaning that he has sole responsibility if he does get fired. Because you said it yourself, this guy is grumpy in the morning and he is either going to yell at you in the morning for not waking him up, or he's going to yell for you waking him up in some kind of way. Seriously, buddy, which one is it? Do you want to wake up on time and make a living, or just stay in bed and get fired? Because right now he is on his last warning. This guy is on the verge of getting fired, and that is literally his own fault. So no, you are not the jerk. You haven't done anything wrong. And honestly, if your boyfriend does end up getting fired, that is 100% on him and nobody else. My friend is quite literally ruining my job by going out of her way to be obnoxious and make me look bad. And even though she's only worked here for about 4 days, I'm now seriously at such an impasse that I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm pretty sure it's controversial to refer your friend to your job. My friend asked me if my job was hiring, and I said they are, and I gave her a glowing recommendation. But ever since my friend started, it has been very unpleasant to work with her. We both work at a school, so luckily we're in different classrooms. Last year, I worked in the classroom my friend now works in, and the teacher in that room was absolutely horrible to me, and all she did was yell at me and talk down to me. It was such a miserable experience, and I told my friend how difficult that woman made my job. I would even come to my friends crying over the way I was treated. But my friend, on the other hand, she loves this woman, and she constantly tells me how much she loves her. She would even go as far as to tell me that she's special. Now, it hurts me a lot because as her friend, she's disregarding what happened to me. I feel like the more she says how much she loves her, the more she's pushing me away. There's another teacher in that room who I got along with really well, but according to my friend, she finds her to be an absolute jerk, and she's constantly saying rude things to me about her. Now, for a side note, I'm in a new class, but the teachers in that room are more quiet and introverted, which isn't bad. I mean, it makes my job easier, and it's much better than being yelled at by the other from the last year. So as a result, they just come across as awkward and unfriendly. Well, today at the end of work, I saw my friend standing in the hallway. I asked her what happened, and she said that they were doing some renovations in her room, so I invited her into my classroom. It was the last few minutes of walk, so there weren't any kids at work, and we had nothing important to do. So my friend came into my classroom, and I introduced her. My coworkers didn't say anything, which I will agree is rude. They didn't even say hello or even acknowledge her. They aren't mean people, but it doesn't come across well. My friend and I were just sitting down, catching up with each other, and then out of nowhere, my friend loudly said, "I just can't be in this room," and then she stormed off. And I just sat there so embarrassed, and I know a few of my coworkers in my room noticed what happened, so I then wished everybody a good rest of the day, and then I headed out. When I saw my friend, I said, "What the heck was that?" She then told me how my coworkers in that classroom are mean people with negative vibes, but I told her, yes, they are quiet, but then she suddenly cut me off from talking. She continued by saying that she can tell they aren't good people, but I told her, okay, but I've been here for 3 years and I can tell you that they are not mean people. The whole car ride home, she continued insulting her job and praising that one truly rude person. And it hurts so much because I got her a job at my job, and she is literally insulting everything. My friend's whole thing is that she doesn't want to get involved in workplace drama and that she just wants to get her paycheck and then leave. But she is already 4 days in and she's creating a lot of chaos. I really don't know what to do, and I'm so scared that it will impact my reputation at work. What should I do? Okay, first off, your friend is an absolute jerk. They're literally going out of their way to ruin your job. And I've got to be honest, it really seems like they're trying to sabotage your life as well. Like, I think anybody with some sense of like morality or even like, I don't know, half a brain would probably recognize that that first teacher you dealt with was absolutely insane. She was rude, hateful, and honestly and unsurprisingly, nobody liked her. So it really seems like your friend is going out of her way to make it seem like, oh yeah, she's not that bad, she's amazing. And I think I can confidently say that she's doing that to try and undermine your experience. She's trying to spin this into a positive in a way that's not fair for you in the slightest. And she's now doing it with literally other people that you work with, like your coworkers right now in that classroom that you had her sit down in. She went out of her way to scream at the top of her lungs, "Oh my god, I can't stay in here. I've got to get out of this classroom," only to then storm off as if she's a teenager. Like, what on earth was that about? That is so unprofessional. Like, that along with all the other things you're mentioning really seems like she's trying to ruin your life and ruin your job experience. Like, was she ever your friend to begin with? It seems like she probably like manipulated her way into getting a job, and now that she's here, she's literally ruining your workplace experience. And also, why on earth are you riding with her to work? I would cut that cord immediately. That could only add to the misery of having to show up every day to that, on top of the fact that I'm pretty sure she's probably talking garbage about you behind your back. Because I've learned in life, if they're willing to do that with other people, then they absolutely would do that with you. So in my opinion, and I can only speak for what I would do if I was in that situation, I would really consider the water poisoned and start looking for another job. Like, that's just me. I really think I would just start looking for somewhere else to work, because based on what you've described, it seems like this is not only incredibly surprising, but it also seems like your friend is only getting started. Who knows the kind of chaos they're going to cause at your expense? Like, that sounds awful, and I would just not want to deal with that. So with whatever you choose to do in this situation, I really hope it all works out, because the way this lady's acting towards you is completely unfair, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss refuses to hire anybody extra just so we can try and do our job at a better pace, because now after 4 years, my team is overworked and burned out, resulting in just about everybody quitting their job and finding something else. Here's what happened. So I've been working in IT for the last 10 years, and 4 of those are in the company that I'm just leaving. I joined this company after a few bad experiences with coworkers and bosses, and after getting to know some of the staff in the company, I was really happy about the coworkers and colleagues because most of them seemed to be really friendly. Now, into my second year at the company, I felt like we were understaffed in IT, but I thought to myself, okay, but it's not so bad, right? Well, that is until our workload increased, and this is all before we could handle the daily stuff and projects, and on top, could even do some system upgrades over the year. And now we were getting more and more work due to new regulations from corporate and more software that needed to be supported. During this time, I started asking my team leader to look for a new guy as we really needed more hands. After a year of bringing this up at least once per month, my boss started with his usual speeches. He would say, "You just need to prioritize your work." And of course, this would not help if the work itself is at like 110% of the workload that the current team could even handle. We increased our hours and could get it done, but that was only for half a year. At this point, I was done with this whole ordeal. Corporate IT got more and more hostile, and on top, I saw people leave left and right. After around 3 years of being with the company, I saw our trainee leave. I talked to him about pay and why he wanted to leave, and not to try and dissuade him, but to understand his reasoning and show my support. And at that moment, I've been passively looking for a job for about 6 months. I was also at this time talking to my team leader and telling him that he needs to increase my salary by around 8% at least and bring more hands onto the team. He was asking me why I wanted to leave, so I told him about all the problems that he knows about and said that I can't bring myself to stay in this company with all these problems that the team is facing. I then repeated back the same thing he tried to give a speech about so many times. I said to him, I just need to prioritize myself. And while he didn't react, unfortunately, I do think that I got the point across. Later, I heard from my boss, basically the one above my team leader and me, that my team leader has never asked for more people. And to be honest, I want to trust this guy because he was sincere all the time as far as I know. But regardless, I handed in my resignation and I start my new job next month. And hopefully this new job will be better than my old one. Oh man, I cannot stand when managers do this. You tell them, hey, we're completely at capacity and we need more staff. Or you explain that your workload is impossible and the team can't keep up. And instead of hiring somebody to help out, they just say, oh, just work on yourself, you can do it. They give these empty, encouraging statements that literally do nothing. And then, just like in the story, people start leaving. They start dropping like flies. And to that end, I don't blame the original poster for being like, listen, I need a pay increase. You're giving me more work than I signed on for, and this is not fair. And I bet this guy didn't bring anybody on board because it probably would have affected his paycheck and his bonus at the end of the year. Like, that's typically what's happened in the past at previous jobs I've worked at, and it is always so obnoxious to see. They would rather make sure they have a good paycheck instead of making sure the team, I don't know, doesn't quit their job. So truly, I hope your new job is way better than what you've been dealing with, because what you described sounds absolutely miserable. My parents are overly critical of my boyfriend, and they are constantly putting him down and trying to call him entitled. And after hearing their concerns and trying to understand where they're coming from, I feel like I'm at such an impasse that at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents and I just had a big conversation about my boyfriend and what they really think about him. For context, we've been dating for 1 year, and we met at the same college, and I'm 1 year older than him, and I just graduated while he's in his senior year of college. They have made snarky remarks in the past, which I have ignored, but this conversation was the biggest one we've ever had yet. Now, this all started with me saying that I'm going to visit him at college for the weekend, because I haven't seen him in weeks due to our busy schedules. I mentioned that I will sleep over for a couple of days, to which my mom made like a weird confused face, and then she just laughed. I was like, wait, what's so funny? To which she responded, it's ridiculous that you're going back to the college that you graduated from just to visit your boyfriend and sleep in a dorm again for a few days. And I thought to myself, I'm sorry, but is that really that strange or something? Like, don't couples visit their partner in college during the weekends and have like a sleepover? So what if I'm graduated? Like, what is odd about that? Well, this then basically got into a conversation where she started naming every aspect that she doesn't like about him. First of all, she hates the age gap, because my mom said that because he's only 1 year younger than me, she claims that he is so much younger than you. But it's like, wait, it's only 1 year. And so according to her, he's not a man in her eyes and doesn't have the ability to take care of me, even though I feel that he absolutely takes care of me and he is a gentleman. Now, when he came over to my house, and he's only been to my place maybe twice, by the way, after we were all done eating dinner, if there was anything left over, he would ask if anyone was gonna eat it, and we would all say no, so he would just finish what's left. And apparently, in my mom's eyes, he was eating too much, while also being inconsiderate, even though this is literally a compliment to my mom's cooking. My parents also criticized that he wouldn't talk a whole lot, but he is just just the shy type and has only met my family twice 6 months apart, so I understand. My dad then criticized that he didn't ask the right type of questions. For example, when we went to visit my grandparents, my boyfriend asked my grandparents how they met and how they like living in the country that they do. But apparently, my dad said those were stupid questions and instead should have asked something like, "Oh, how did you make this dinner?" And it's like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Now, another time I got sunburnt at the beach because my boyfriend went swimming and I was sat under the shade, but then decided to tan and put sunscreen on my own back. And I low-key just fell asleep and I got burnt. And apparently my dad blamed it on him, even though my boyfriend wasn't near me for like 30 minutes. I then went to the beach again and I stayed an hour later than I should have because I wasn't going to see him for 4 weeks and I just wanted to spend 1 extra hour with him. But then my mom texted me saying me coming home later than expected was his fault, even though we both came in our own cars, meaning that I have full control over when I leave, and also I'm a fully grown adult. And my parents even get upset over like really petty things. For example, when he came over to my house the second time, he was sitting on a wide couch where you can extend your legs. However, his toes were touching the side of the table and not on top of the table at all, and my mom said that because of that, he has absolutely no manners at all, and has generalized him as that kind of person, calling him ill-mannered and entitled, and now that's how she views him. When we visited my grandparents, he was carrying flowers to give to my grandma as a thank you for having us, and I guess in that moment he forgot to come back to the car and help my dad and uncle with the suitcases, and so my dad called him entitled for that, saying that he doesn't feel like he has to help, when honestly it was a genuine mistake, because in that moment, he was focused on surprising my grandmother with flowers, and he just forgot, because when we were in a different country beforehand, he carried everything in, leaving me with just a backpack and a travel suitcase, and he would carry the heavy suitcases constantly, and the list honestly goes on and on. But this conversation left me feeling so empty and upset because I genuinely love him, and I feel like he treats me well and is a man to me. I understand there's certain things that may seem like a gray area, but is there really a need to generalize him as an ill-mannered person and as entitled? I'm honestly so stressed out and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your parents are being kind of ridiculous because what they're describing is not that bad. Like for starters, it seems like nothing he ever does is ever good enough. They overlook all of his good qualities, and it really seems like they're making mountains out of molehills. Like they're seriously cherry picking these moments of being like, oh wow, he is so entitled for not doing this or that. But it's like, really? Are we gonna generalize that much? Like that seems incredibly extreme and just so stupid. Like to me, there's nothing in this post that makes this guy seem like a bad guy in the slightest. But instead, this just shows that your parents are kind of insane. They have no idea what they're talking about, and it seems like they're just being super weird for like no reason. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell my parents to get lost. They're being super critical about your boyfriend for no reason, and it seems like they're just trying to invent new ways to dislike him. My husband's gaming is ruining our marriage, as I now have found out he's been messaging a woman behind my back for several months, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 17 years, and we've been together for 20. For most of that time, our relationship was everything that one could hope for. We've always enjoyed spending time together, especially since he works for me, so being around each other constantly was something we both loved. About 3 or 4 years ago, he started playing a game on his phone. I saw him playing it often, but assumed it was just a harmless game. Over time, he became obsessed with his phone, staying up late and falling asleep on the couch in our basement, and at this point, I now consider the basement living room his bedroom because he rarely sleeps in ours anymore. Well, this past year has been the worst of our marriage. He has become angry, short-tempered, and often raises his voice at me. He stays up all night and then sleeps through most of the next day, sometimes even wearing the same clothing for days at a time. He's distant and disconnected from what used to be a shared life. It always feels like he's somewhere else. Also, his work has suffered and I've had to cover for him. My friends and family have noticed too, and I've made excuses for him. I thought we were going through a rough patch, and if I just waited things out, everything would eventually improve. Last week, a text came through on his phone while he was asleep on the couch, and when I saw the notification, I picked up his phone and I read the message along with many others. And it was then that I saw a long chain of communication between my husband and a woman that I've never heard of, with text messages going back and forth at all hours of the night. When I saw this, I woke him up immediately, and he told me that it was just someone from the game. He was then angry that I was upset, and then he went to the basement, slamming the door in the process. The next morning, he was calmer and tried to convince me I was overreacting. The next day, I checked his call and text logs online, and I do that because the phones are paid for by the company that I own, so I definitely have access. Well, I found there were 2-hour-long texting sessions with hundreds of messages, and these were happening regularly regularly. While there weren't many calls, a few that existed lasted up to 70 minutes, often in the middle of the night. When I confronted him again, he claimed he didn't remember the calls, even though one had been just 2 weeks earlier. He said it was related to the game where players sometimes wake each other up to get online. I then started reading on Reddit about Discord, and I discovered that he had an account there, which he had joined a year ago, which is around the time when our problem started. So I logged in, and I saw numerous exchanges between him and this woman. While they weren't explicitly inappropriate, the messages were flirty and suggestive. She had even sent him recordings of herself singing vulgar songs. After reading her general conversations with others, it became clear that this was her usual behavior: flirtatious, vulgar, and attention-seeking. It's been a week of confronting him with evidence, and each time he admits the bare minimum and denies the rest until I find more proof. He always has excuses, even for text messages and calls that no longer appear on his phone but are still clearly listed in the usage logs. I also asked if he spent money on the game, and initially he said hundreds, but when I checked his bank account, which by the way, we added each other to our accounts when we got married, I discovered that over the past 30 months, he had spent $6,500 on the game. He kept all of this from me for so long, and when I found out, he repeatedly lied. He's been gaslighting me throughout this entire ordeal. He has since deleted the game from his phone, and I also confirmed that it's not on his work PC either. He also deleted and blocked the woman's number at my request, and he keeps telling me how he loves me and that he's sorry for hurting me. He claims he got caught up in the game and the culture surrounding it, with no intention beyond just fitting in. While I believe he's genuinely sorry now, I'm struggling to trust him moving forward. If I hadn't found out, who knows how far this would have gone. At this point, I'm less worried about this woman and more concerned about his self-control and his ability to live a responsible adult life. I'm feeling an overwhelming mix of emotions. I'm feeling depression, sadness, anxiety, as well as fear, loneliness, and grief, with anger being the least of them all. I don't want a divorce unless it's the last option available. I don't want to throw away 20 years of my life unless there's no other choice. But right now, I feel like I don't have any good options. What should I do? Yeah, this is a serious situation, because your husband was literally like inches away from cheating on you. And yes, I think this was all leading in that direction, and the fact that you intervened kind of like stopped the process, at least for now. Like, why else would he be so distant and like hiding in the basement to sleep there instead of staying in the same bed with you? Like, I don't know, that just seems really weird, and I can't imagine going through that in the way that you are currently going through right now. So truly, I hope this all gets better, because this absolutely falls on your husband and nobody else. An entitled jerk tries to walk out of a veterinarian clinic by claiming that he didn't know he had to pay for any of the services rendered, and I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's entitled behavior. Here's what happened. So I work in a vet clinic in a rich neighborhood that is honestly insufferable. Most people are perfectly normal and pleasant, and dealing with very sick or dying pets means that emotions sometimes run high, so it's not uncommon for people to get somewhat rude or just a little bit awful, which usually is completely fine. But once every month or so, I have to put up with an S-tier fat old jerk. Not someone grieving or under high stress, but just a pathetic old bully. Today, we had a client send her dad to get an injection for her cat, and this barely takes maybe 5 minutes. When they handed the old guy the cat carrier afterwards, he just turned around and bolted and didn't even pay for a single service we rendered. The clinic manager is sitting next to me at the front desk at the same time, and she sees this and then goes out to flag him down before he gets into his car. I don't know what she said, but it must have hit a nerve of some kind, or he just really sucked as a human being. This old jerk then comes back in and is huffing and puffing. He says to us, "Well, nobody told me that I had to do that. I didn't know about that. Where do you people get off talking like that?" He continued to complain and moan, talking over me the whole time as I got him checked out. I didn't engage with his whining, but instead I just told him the total, and I showed him where he could tap his card. Now, choosing not to react to this old jerk set him off even more, as he then demanded to know my name. But I just said no and handed him his receipt, which he crumpled up like a toddler. I then blankly stared at him and I kept repeating, "Have a good day," and I said this over and over again, until he finally said, "You know what? The attitude here is terrible. I won't be coming back here." And he said one or two more things, but they were completely unintelligible. Regardless, he was still beet red in the face as he stomped off. And you know what? I seriously revile these people. It's hard not to let it become a generalized hatred towards anyone who looks over 55, but I know that for men like him, there's no greater punishment than being themselves. Okay, if there's ever a place on planet Earth where you know you're gonna have to pay probably a lot of money by the end of the day, it is definitely at the vet clinic. So for this old guy who has definitely been to the veterinarian once before in his life, to sit there and act like, oh, I didn't know I had to pay. Like, that is completely false and not correct in the slightest. But you know what? The way the original poster acted is something I've noticed in the wild as well. People like this are looking for some kind of argument. They want to have a fight, they want to sit there and get nasty and angry with you. So when you deny them that chance and give no reaction, this makes them go absolutely crazy. And that, in my opinion, is the best revenge you could have possibly dished out. So good for you for the way you handled this, because that old entitled jerk absolutely had it coming. An entitled racist Karen at IHOP goes in on me and my family by screaming at us that we need to go back to China and that apparently real Americans don't need us here. Things got so bad after this Karen tried to get physical that I ended up calling the police. Here's what happened. So last night, I was eating at IHOP with my mom and older sister. For reference, I'm 19 years old, my older sister is 22, and my mom is 50 years old. Now, lucky us, we were seated in a booth next to a Karen who's maybe in her mid-40s and her maybe 4-year-old son, with some other people who were dining with them, but trust me, they are not important to the story. We got there at the tail end of their meal, but they were just sitting and chatting as their waiter brought over their receipt. Now, the entire time, the kid was peeking over the booth periodically and reaching out to grab my sister's or my hair while his hands were covered in sticky maple syrup, or he would be bouncing so hard on the cushion that it shook our side of the bench. Now, we didn't say anything, as it's generally not worth it to cause a scene to people who we thought were already leaving. Well, we got our food and we were taking pictures as it was the Willy Wonka theme, and for the record, we're prone to take pictures of unique experiences. I got this sparkly hot chocolate, and my mom and sister got this bucket of mimosas and some large alcoholic beverage to share. Eventually, the family began to leave, and we all kind of sighed in relief. The kid, however, stayed around as the Karen was the last to leave. He peeked over our table and looked at our food and tried to touch it, which we quickly moved our food away from him. Well, he stopped trying to touch it and instead began to cough directly at us and onto our food. I mean, I could feel the spit of the kid's saliva on my hand. Now, my mom had enough at that point and looked at the Karen and asked her to mind her kid. And it's right at this moment that things really started to pop off. The Karen looked at my mom and said, "He is not sick. He just has asthma." And it's like, okay, as if coughing on our food would be okay if he wasn't sick. But my mom said it again. "He is coughing on us. Please move him." The Karen then said, "He is not sick. It's not that big of a deal." So my mom asked her, "Okay, so you're okay if I spit in your food?" And it was then that this Karen lost her mind. She screamed out, "How dare you?" And then this Karen actually throws a cup that she stole from another dinner's table that was full of hot coffee at my mom. Now, luckily it splashed onto the ground and it didn't really hurt anything, but my mom was livid at that point, and I had 911 dialed up and ready to go. My sister and I were periodically interjecting with curse words and defending our family, but my mom at this point was already done with it. The Karen stalked off with her kid, shouting for us to go back to China, while also saying that real Americans don't need you here. This entitled Karen then screamed at a server that we assumed she knew personally that this apparently is why COVID was so bad, because people like us were bringing diseases. Well, as she was stalking off, my mom got up and threw a fork at her back and started screaming right back at her. Now, I had 911 on call listening in and had the police come and gave them the address to the IHOP. I was also taking a picture of the Karen and everything that I thought that we might needed. All the while, the Karen was screaming that she had a child with her and also demanding to know why my mom would be so violent and throwing more slurs and racist accusations at us. And it's so convenient that she literally threw the first punch by throwing a cup of coffee at us. The entitled Karen eventually left and no one tried to stop her as the cops weren't there yet. All the while, my mom was yelling that we would report her for this. We moved on to a different table and we got some replacements for our food, which none of us had really even eaten yet. Unfortunately, we didn't get a replacement for the mimosas, even though that was by far the most expensive thing, because alcohol apparently wasn't replaceable. My mom later complained about that too, because the staff did nothing to stop her from harassing us. They didn't contact the authorities on their own, and some even seemed to know her on a personal level. In the middle of our mostly replaced meal, the cops came and got our statement, to which my mom absolutely said she wanted to press charges. But it turns out it's not so easy, and we're still in the paperwork and reporting aspect of it, but my mom is quite adamant to continue on with it as she hates being treated like a second-class citizen, especially in front of her family. But needless to say, I think after all of that, we are definitely not going to be going back to IHOP anytime soon. That is a terrible situation. I can't believe somebody acted like that. Like, this really did kind of escalate in a way that nobody probably ever expected, because seriously, this Karen like went off her rocker. Is it really that much to ask to keep your kid away from someone else's food? Asthma is not an excuse for your kid to cough all over someone else's food. That is honestly obnoxious and there's no good excuse for that. I cannot stand parents who act like that, where they literally will make an excuse for anything their kid is doing just so they can get away from actually being a parent and disciplining them. So truly, I hope this all works out for you and your family, because the way this Karen acted is awful and she absolutely deserves to get in trouble. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My best friend's mom confessed in front of everybody that she has a crush on my boyfriend, and I have never been put in a more awkward situation in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to preface this by saying that I mostly just want to get this off my chest because I can't possibly be the only one weirded out by this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male, and my 19-year-old boyfriend and I went to my best friend's birthday today. Keep in mind, my boyfriend and I have been together for a year, and this is maybe the third or fourth time he's interacted with our female friend's mom. Never for an extended period of time, and never without me present. My friend's mom is in her 60s, and she is kind of weird to begin with. It might have something to do with her being bipolar, but I'm not really sure. On Halloween, the three of us went out, and my boyfriend and I stepped in for a bit when we picked my friend up from her house. Her mom was there, and within the first few minutes, my boyfriend crouched down to pet their dog, and my friend's mom leaned over and started petting his hair. And for reference, he has long curly hair that goes past his shoulders. Now, during and afterwards, he brushed it off by laughing and said it was a natural reaction, but it came up recently, and he admitted that he did find it weird, and I don't think he would have tolerated it in a different situation, which then leads to tonight. So, in the middle of the party, this 60-year-old woman loudly exclaims to her roommate, who is another older woman, that she has a crush on my boyfriend. It was hard to hear some of it due to all the talking, but she said it was because he's so nice, and said something about how if she was younger, things would be different. So yeah, things got awkward really quickly. This immediately made me, my friend, and my boyfriend look at each other. He made a face like, this is weird and very uncomfortable. Neither of us verbalized it, but my friend did. Like the first time when she straight up said, no, that's weird, which didn't stop her mom from petting him uncomfortably. And I'm just like, how do you even respond to that? I know some people are going to comment that it's just a thing with older generations, but that doesn't necessarily make it okay. And on a deeper level, she related his personality to having a crush on him, which honestly weirds me out more than if it was just his looks, and straight up pet him like a dog. All three of us, but mainly him, are uncomfortable with this, as it really is a weird situation for us to be stuck in. Yeah, that is a seriously weird situation, and I know exactly what the original poster's talking about. Someone comes up and says, oh, if I was younger, it would be so different. I would sweep you off your feet. And it's like, wait a second, I do not know you like that, and that is incredibly weird. Not to mention that she's like, I don't know, petting someone's head, as if this is some kind of like fun game between the two of them. And you know what? I don't even blame this guy's reaction in the slightest. If that was me in the moment, I probably would not know what to do either. Like, I would also probably just laugh it off in some kind of way. But also, I would take a mental note and be like, never again. This is never happening again. So yeah, that was a really weird and creepy situation, and I don't blame you for being upset by that, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My boyfriend's controlling and clingy parents literally will not leave us alone, and after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because right now, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to put it bluntly, my boyfriend's mother wants to be his #1 priority and make me the side chick, but it's not always been like this. I triggered some huge insecurity in her, and this didn't kick up until she realized that I'm not some flavor of the week and that I'm not going away. She has been escalating because I'm a threat to her control over him, so now she's controlling my access to him by giving him a curfew, not allowing sleepovers, and she makes plans that exclude me and doesn't tell him until the last possible minute so he can't invite me. She also knows my work schedule, and she is beginning to time her plans with him around the only days I get to see him. She tells him when he can and can't spend time with me because she misses him and she never gets to see him. And honestly, cry me a river. They and his 3 other siblings live together. She's just feeling sorry for herself because he has a girlfriend now, and she's jealous of the attention I'm getting, as well as playing the victim and acting like I'm taking away from her. So now she's taking him away from me. She plays the game and is polite to my face, but she is pulling strings behind the scenes that are definitely personal. Another example is that she had a family night where no girlfriends were allowed, so they could go watch a movie with him that's fairly new, which is one that we were going to watch together because she knew this was our thing, and she did this on purpose without me. She also told me that he can't come to my house, but if I want to see him, I have to spend my gas and drive to see him at their house on her terms. And I'm just thinking to myself, no, I'm not going to have someone tell me where and when I can see my boyfriend. It's also important to note that he got a DUI in April and he doesn't get his license back for 2 more months, and he's taking a DUI class. Now, before you judge, he was raised with alcoholic parents who normalize a lot of unhealthy behaviors, but he's growing as a person and realizing why alcohol is destructive. I believe he needed that wake-up call because I've noticed a shift in his habits and he's becoming a better role model for his younger siblings, so I'm proud of him for turning things around. However, his restricted license expired and he had to call another number to get it renewed, and he should have gotten it by now, but I think his mother intercepted his mail and hid it from him, so now he has to depend on her for rides. Therefore, she controls where he goes and what he does. She is also keeping him naive and disadvantaged so she can keep him dependent on her and have control over him in very sick and insidious ways, giving him bad career advice and telling him false things about the real world so he has a simplistic belief about it that's just totally not true, and in a roundabout way, she's setting him up for failure, and it's all to her benefit so that he can't leave her. She's so obsessed with him that she will be the puppet master and manipulate his whole life if it means he ultimately has to come back and obey her. I even caught her lying to me and telling me he wasn't home when he was. She had turned his phone off so he wouldn't hear her calling or texting him, and we had plans that day, so I wanted to know if they were still on or if something had come up. So I gritted my teeth and I texted her to ask if he was home, and she just straight up told me no. Well, I found out by calling his dad, and he was working on his car in the garage, but she wasn't going to get her butt up off the couch and take 2 steps outside and tell him that I called or put him on the phone with me. Last night, his phone kept lighting up when we were trying to watch a movie at my house. His dad eventually called him, and it was barely 8:00 p.m. asking when he was coming home. I wanted so badly to take the phone out of my boyfriend's hand, hold it to my ear, and tell his dad to get lost, because his parents know by now that I always get Cinderella home before midnight. This must be so embarrassing for him, but it's infuriating to me to watch him go through this and also have a third party control my adult relationship with my boyfriend. I'm honestly so frustrated, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. First of all, I want to say that the mom in this story sounds crazy. She really does sound like the weird jealous type, and it sounds like she's trying to hold on to her precious baby and is straight up just refusing to let him go and move on with his life. Like seriously, he is allowed to have a girlfriend. So the fact that she's trying to get in the way of that and literally do anything she can to keep her son in her house and away from you is just really weird overall. But in my opinion, the biggest problem in this story is the fact that your boyfriend is not taking any kind of steps to get away from his mom in this way. Why is he not putting a foot down and being like, wait a second, you do not control my life. You can't tell me what I can and can't do, and because I'm an adult, I don't have to abide by your curfew. I can understand if there's some kind of house rules that he might have to abide by, but it sounds like this guy is a grown adult, meaning that he can make his own decisions and choose what he wants to do with his life. So for his mom to be like, no, you have a curfew, and guess what? You can't go anywhere without my permission, or at least saying that in the way that she acts, that is all crazy to me, and there's no good excuse for that. So if I was in your shoes, I would be sitting down with this boyfriend and being like, okay, what's going on here? Why are you not taking a stand against your mom? Or at the bare minimum, coming to bat for you? It seems like you're doing everything you can to stay in contact with your boyfriend, but he, on the other hand, isn't doing nearly enough to try and keep in contact with you. Does he not want to be around you? What's going on right now? So honestly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this because this sounds absolutely obnoxious. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very frustrated as well. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my mother-in-law at a family dinner after she disgraced the memory of my dead mother? Here's what happened. Okay, so this is a throwaway account since my husband is an active user online. I'm a 23-year-old female and I've been married to my husband who's 24 for about 3 years now. We were high school sweethearts and we have been best friends ever since elementary school, and he still is my best friend even to this day. I've never had a great relationship with his mom as she is very difficult to talk to, and our conversations are usually very shallow. Stuff like gossiping about neighbors or complaining about the landscapers, etc. Almost a year ago, my mom passed away, which still feels very surreal to write about. She truly was my soulmate, and I'm incredibly grateful to have had her in my life for 23 years. I miss her more than words can describe. My husband's family really stepped up during that time, supporting us financially with funeral costs and managing affairs when I was deep in grief, and I'm genuinely grateful for their help. Now, fast forward to now, and we're expecting our first baby. As excited as I am, I'm also deeply saddened that my mom won't be here to guide me through this. We always talked about what my kids would call her, and at the time, we settled on the name Grams. Now, onto the incident. We were celebrating our pregnancy at a dinner with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law asked to make a toast. She laughed and said, "I'm so grateful to celebrate a new addition to our family. We can't wait to meet our little Veronica, which by the way is her name. She then went on to talk about her own pregnancy and what I should expect, mentioning that my husband had an abnormal head when he was born. Then she said to me, I look forward to being the first grandma to Veronica, since of course I'll be the only grandma. Well, when she said that, the room went silent, and I just started to cry. I stood up and I told her how incredibly insensitive it was to say that, and that my mom would always be a grandmother whether she's here or not. She responded by saying I was overreacting and that it was all just a joke, but I told her to go straight to Hades and that I left immediately. My husband later called me, saying that he spoke to his mom, who was in tears because she was so embarrassed. She asked him to apologize on her behalf, and he told me that I should have come back instead of telling her to go to Hades and storm off. I'm currently staying with my sister and I haven't stopped crying ever since. She supports me 100%, but I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, for starters, no, you're not the jerk, and I want to explain why. Your mother-in-law is not only a vindictive person, but also she might be just straight up evil. For her to be like, oh, you're gonna name your first kid Veronica, but also be like, oh, I'm gonna be the only grandma in this kid's life. Like, if that isn't a very pointed insult towards you and a very serious jab at your dead mother, then in my opinion, I don't know what is. Because she said that on purpose. She said that to try and hurt you, and that is not fair for you in the slightest. And the biggest evidence of that, in my opinion, is the fact that she was crying because she was embarrassed and not because she realized the error of her ways. She wasn't upset because she realized she offended you or that she basically spat on the memory of your mother. She only cried to your husband because she was embarrassed. Think about that for a second. She only cared about how she was perceived by everybody else instead of actually coming to you and being like, wait a second, what I said was so bad, I'm so sorry. Her priorities are completely mixed up and turned around that it couldn't be more obvious that she's playing her hand and basically being like this vindictive monster. And you know what? For your husband to be like, oh, come on, you should have come back. Like, no, absolutely not. If that was me, there's no way I would go back to that stupid dinner. Here you are trying to celebrate your pregnancy, and she talks about her own pregnancy and tries to name your child, while also, you know, insulting your mother who passed away. Like, this whole situation sucks, and it's that lady's fault, not yours. Because you only walked out as a result of her comments. Like, you should not be blamed for her awful behavior, but instead, she should absolutely be held accountable for the crappy thing she just said to you. So no, you are definitely not the jerk at all in this situation, because what your mother-in-law did at this family dinner was so inappropriate, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. My dad's fiance is demanding that I babysit her kids during their wedding, but even after I said no, my dad's fiance is furious with me, claiming that I have an obligation to do so for my new siblings. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not, because all of this is blowing way out of proportion. Here's what happened. So my dad and his fiance, who we will call Kristen, are getting married in January. Kristen has 3 kids under 8 years old, and my dad has me, and I'm a 17-year-old male. My mom died 11 years ago, and Kristen's ex-husband is alive, but doesn't play a role in the lives of their kids, except for child support, which is apparently taken from his income because he simply wasn't paying. Her kids don't remember their dad, and so my dad and Kristen are hoping that dad will become their new dad. I met Kristen and her kids about 4 to 5 months ago at the same time, and given my age and the fact that I did fine with just me and my dad, I'm not looking for Kristen to fill any sort of maternal or motherly role. I also don't think I'll be engaging with Kristen's kids as a sibling. Now this upsets her because she wanted me to be the cool older sibling for them, and someone who might babysit on occasion, but mostly someone who'd make a point to spend time with them. But I'm not planning on spending too much time with them. I have plans for once I turn 18 years old, and my dad always knew this. So this has fed into the whole babysitting the kids during the wedding stuff. Kristen says that since I won't be 18 when they get married, and I'll still be living with my dad, I should be willing to monitor her kids throughout the wedding. And my dad admitted that she's hoping it makes me a little more willing to be someone to her kids. I said no when I was initially asked, and I was very clear with my response. Kristen then told me that it wasn't like I was looking forward to the wedding anyways, so why not just agree to babysit? She told me that it would give me the chance to bond with her kids, and I said no. My dad said he would pay me to do it if I was agreeable to money for it. But then Kristen was saying that it would be hurtful if I wouldn't do it as a favor to my growing family. Dad told her it was expecting a little too much, and she argued that if I'm there and I'm still living with him, I should be willing, and that I seem so resistant acting like a sibling, and that this is incredibly childish. There was some more back and forth about it, and Kristen got really pissed off when I said it again as clearly as I could, stating very plainly that I won't babysit during their wedding. Dad said he would pay for a sitter, but Kristen said I should really be more willing here, that Dad and I don't have an awful relationship, relationship, so why won't I give all this a chance and make the day less expensive and more of a happy memory for everybody? So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for saying no. Like, sure, Kristen can be disappointed in your actions or whatever she wants to say, but for her to keep asking over and over again and be like, no, you have to do it, we're family. Like, that's obnoxious in my opinion, and I would get so annoyed by that. Like, there's no reason to try and guilt trip you into this as if this is some kind of family that you want to be a part of. Like, you're literally going to be out of that house in a year. The day you turn 18, you're going to be moving on with your life. Like, your dad knows this and probably has accepted this. So it's kind of weird that Kristen is like, no, you need to be a big brother to your siblings. And it's like, lady, I don't have siblings. These are not my siblings. They are your kids and I have nothing to do with them. And it's so weird that she's trying to like force this relationship in some kind of way, because you've clearly made your wishes known. You don't want to do that and you just want to move on with your life. And considering all the details here, I honestly don't blame you in the slightest for doing that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because in my opinion, Kristen is over the line for pressuring you in the way that she's trying to do. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.